Well, it's 9 o'clock, so we'll call this meeting to order. If you'd stand. Don, will you lead us in a word of prayer, and we'll say the pledge immediately following.
Our most great, gracious Heavenly Father, thanks for the many blessings of life you've given us. Thank you for the opportunity to serve on the city council. Do your will on the city council. Give us the passion and the knowledge and the wisdom to go forward and do the right thing at all times. Help us as we help the citizens make a better community, a cleaner community, a safer community. And help us always to do the right thing, Lord. For it's in the blessed name of Jesus Christ, my true Lord and Savior, I do pray. Amen. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for coming to this work session this morning. We'll turn it over to Russell. I think the first one's Lion.
Yes, I'd like to thank all the department heads for putting in work to be prepared today for our work session. We have a culmination of issues and projects, a lot of which we don't get a lot of talk time at council meeting. But as we approach mid-year, thought it would be good to bring you in, give you an update, let you ask questions. So with that, we'll turn it over to Mr. Joyce.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I gave you two packets this morning. One is the thicker one with the clip on it is your normal financials, January through June that you're used to seeing. There's the full listing of all the bank accounts, what's unreserved, and the ones at the bottom. The financials printed from the system are in the back, and then the ones I create for you, which gives you just the 6 months of a budget versus the actual kind of in the middle. I have the other packet with the B on top, goes with your agenda, and that's what I want to discuss briefly this morning. But, feel free to take these home as normal, go over them, look at them. There'll be some funds in here we won't discuss today, but if you have questions. No, our stimulus money didn't hit until July, so this is through June. Yeah, so anyway, with that being said, you've got that, and I do apologize. I've got behind, I guess after COVID in January and then the audit stuff, I never could kind of get caught up. So I think you had seen January and February, but this catches us up everything through June now with a couple of weeks there. But it had been a little while since I had given you these. That's why I wanted to make sure we do this morning. So with that being said, let's take a look at the other sheet with the B on top. There's 3 pages there, and I want to go over. This is you should be fairly comfortable with kind of how I do things now and what we kind of go over. This is what you're used to seeing. This is how we did the budget to start out with. I like to look at our main 3 funds and how they all kind of work together. We've got, so we'll start with the general fund. So 6 months of budget for the general fund would be $4.2 million. We've received, this is just revenues coming in. We've only received about 2.6, so we're off about 1.6, 1.7. That's pretty normal. Our taxes don't come in until the fall, our insurance premium money, and then we've not made transfers from the electric fund. We do that as needed or throughout the year, and we haven't done that. So there's nothing there that alarms me. Everything looks fine. It's just at this point in time of the year, we'll be a little off. So then I listed every department here and whether they were under or over budget and kind of gave you an explanation out to the right. So city council is okay, you're under budget, so that $399.9 difference on the right means you're under budget. So the city clerk department is over budget now, and that is due to salaries. And we paid, we had Ms. Gail on staff 5 or 6 weeks, I think, or 4 weeks. At the same time, we had the new clerk. And so that should kind of level itself out through the year, but that's why it's over budget. City manager was fine. The general admin department, which is kind of our catch-all for the general fund, it's over budget $101,000. Now everything that I'm mentioning to you on the right, we will do budget amendments. There are things we discuss budget amendments and things you voted on, but that is due to we bought that property for $75,000, so we're over 101 there. We bought property of $75,000. Also in there, what we didn't budget for is we're collecting more money on the inspection fees, but we're paying out the money to Charles Abbott and Associates, so that's in there. And then I think we had a down payment on the master plan to those folks. I can't look like $25,000 or something, I think was what was in there. But anyway, so that again is kind of in line. The finance department was under budget $91,000, and that's because we have $190 in there for the software purchase. So half of that would be, right around that $90,000 number. So we're would be even if it weren't for that. Just to give you a quick update on that, we have paid the initial $55,000, and I am waiting on the first call to set that up on the conversion. So that's moving along. Your tax admin is under budget because we haven't paid the tax. When we do our taxes for this year, we'll pay Andy in his office for collecting it. The legal is over budget just by $1,000, so that's not too bad considering that we changed attorneys at the first of the year, and we've been, y'all been tasking Deanne with a lot of work so far. So I was actually surprised that wasn't more over budget, frankly. Human resources is under budget about $4,700. So municipal court is under budget about $68,000. And I guess Chief's here, we can ask him, but the jail fund was much lower. And so I kind of, according to what my staff said, well, we didn't do a lot of arresting, I guess, in the first part of the year because of COVID.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the numbers, and we were releasing a lot of people off
Right.
of our bonds.
So we
The
had
numbers
some-
are down, but there was some billing issues as well.
Well, I was going to say, I had some billing issues last year. I contacted the sheriff on this one, and he says it's fine. That this is all we owe. So we're actually under budget in municipal court at the moment, which is a good thing. $68,000. The police department was under budget so far, about $190,000. Now, we did have there's some capital in there, like some vehicles and stuff I got to get with Chief on, but the payroll itself was under, right now, about $80,000 due to lack of officers and needing, and we know we need them, we've got that out there, but just to let you know, the 198 in all payroll, but that was part of it. The fire department is over budget about $615,000. That's due to the fire station. We've made a bunch of purchases in there on the fire station. That's where we're running that through as capital, so that's a normal thing. Just to back up what Russell said as part of this, we've gotten $1.6 million of our stimulus money came in last week. So that's not in these financials. That'll be in July. I know y'all have talked about what to do with that, whether it's a sewer or haven't talked about it, going to talk about it. But anyway, that money has come in. We've discussed some of that possibly with the fire station. We still have that whole money from the bond is still in the bank. I haven't pulled any of that down here because I was waiting to see what y'all decided to do and what we were going to do with that. Public Works is under budget right now, $125,000, but Public Works is usually under budget this time of year because we pay the county $150,000 for use of county roads at the end of the year. We never pay it till December. So that's kind of offsets anything we have in there on Public Works. But again, so your general fund, really, your expenses were over budget about $200,000, which is not bad considering the fire department's in there of $600,000. So that gives us a net loss at the moment of $1.8 million in the general fund. Our water revenue is over budget for the total revenue because we have some GFA loans in there with these projects that Russell's going to discuss in a minute. Our billing is off about $86,000 so far this year, which is normal through the summertime. We normally have, and we're going to talk about billing on another schedule that I have. And then we're over budget about $565,000 due to some sewer projects, things that we've already started working on. And again, Russell's going to touch on all of those. Revenues are down about $500,000 in the electric fund, January through June. That's pretty normal. It's usually even more than that. We increase rates a slight amount to have money back. I looked yesterday, and I'm going to show you toward the back, but we typically collect about $1.1 to $1.4 million more in the second half of the year than we do the first half for utility bill, for electric. Well, for all billing, but it's mostly electric. So the $500,000 doesn't bother me at all. And then we've not made our transfers to the general fund, and so we're saving about $1.5 million. So all in all, between the three funds that we look at, we're off about $857,000 through the first part of the year. But again, fairly normal the way everything cycles through. Any questions on that? So what I then look at is our cash position. So if you'll flip over to the next schedule. So I have scheduled out for you kind of how our cash dips and dives through 2018 through 2021. I'll show you the red dot there because at the moment we had a little over $5 million in what you call your unreserved cash, all those funds that we can use for unreserved purposes. But there is a $500,000 came in on the CDBG that I had not moved up yet. So I just kind of bumped that and said, hey, if we did that, we'd be at about $5.8 million. So our cash, you see, is kind of running like it does. I mean, toward the end of the year, you know, we expect it to go back up as everything gets collected and all of our insurance money and things come in. The big check for me is I go to the ending 2020, which is about 6.5 million, and then I go back to this, say, 5.8 number, and I'm like 700,000, and does that match what I had on the three funds on the front page, which was 857? It never matches exactly because we're always transferring money back and forth and getting GFAs and CDBGs, but you know, at least it was close. It wasn't off a ton there. So our cash looks fine, still plenty of money. So on the next page is something that I decided to throw in to look at since we kind of talked about increasing rates or what we had. This gives you billing. I did drop off 17, but this is something Russell and I look at every month, and I key this after we do our bills. And so this gives you 18, 19, 20, and then it's 21. You see it's a pretty noticeable cycle on how it goes up after the summer. This is water and water, sewer, electricity, and garbage, so it's all our billing together. And you can kind of see 2021 we're right in there, but you know, 2019 we were even higher. So even with our increased rates the last couple of months, you know, a small amount, we weren't as high as people had in usage back in 2019. I also track payments the same way, which are typically 1 month behind, and then on the back of that page I gave you accounts receivable. So we're always looking to be, you know, always about 30 days out. But again, so far through 6 months, everything looks fine. I'm going to send all of these financials now that are done out to department heads today, and then I'm going to circle back around first next week on any capital issues, because if we haven't spent the capital, Russell likes for us to go ahead and start working on that. So if there are things that we haven't done, and I think most everybody's jumped on theirs, but I'll be looking at getting our capital stuff going. I have started I got this big, huge spreadsheet with all of our projects and breaking out the engineering stuff and everything we have going on. There's a lot happening. But anyway, we've got a really good handle on that, and I can let Russell talk about that. But our USDA, we got our first, I think we paid the first bill last month on the piping project, so I'll be going to West Central Georgia to draw that money down from the interim financing, which we gave us a TAN loan, so we'll be getting that next week. Any questions on these? Or look at everything at home. If you want other meetings, Ms. Reeves, I know you and I always talk about community development. Look at that. All that's in there. If you want to come in sometime or call me, you know, we can discuss anything in detail on these and try to keep up with everything as you want.
So Lonnie, if you kind of pulled out the capital projects out of all this, it's pretty normal.
Yeah, we're in line. Everything's fine. We're probably a little better, and part of that is my fault because you know, you want to save money, but then I look at it a little bit different. If we give it to if y'all give it to department heads to spend, we want that done for the citizens, right? But part of it is, I think, you know, like Kyle's new. You know, Mike and them won't spend. I haven't given them out financials because I didn't have them done. So part of that's my deal. So now once I give them these today and they see what's left there, like I said, I've talked to some of them. We'll go through some of that. But part of that, you know, I think is people didn't really know and they worked through it. Our budget is going to be a little different this year. I expect to spend a bunch of time with Kyle. We should have a whole different Main Street budget than we've had in the past. We've kind of had one line item for events. But I'm going to start working actually with Taylor today. So I expect some of those kind of things to change, you know, going forward. We need to shore up some of that stuff and make sure and what vendors we're using, and, you know, so anyway, I'm going to go ahead and start on some of that behind the scenes, and then as always, we'll be sending that out. I'll do July's financials. We'll send that out to them in August and start having budget work sessions with y'all in October.
What major expenditures do you anticipate for the next 6 months?
We got $8 million probably, $10 million with the fire station. Yeah, that's why I've had to take another level. So we have an engineering firm that sends out the invoices, and they kind of keep up with that. But Russell and I kind of talked a lot, and we have to keep up with it here. I've got to make sure this money's flowing in and out because we could spend this money very quickly if we're not careful.
There's a lot of bond money, there's a lot of grant money.
Yeah, there's
a lot of GFA money.
Yeah,
There's a
we've
lot of
got-
splost money. I mean, you figure we're doing an $8 million contract at both the sewer plants. You got 2.5 at the fire station that's gotta be finished. We're gonna roll another 1.5 in streets, right, that we're
Yeah.
about to let.
Yeah, so I'm about to let, for the T-Splosh for this year, we're still finishing up your T-Splosh from last year. We haven't actually paid McElroy the last invoice on that. Trey called me yesterday for the new budget amount. I'll calculate that this afternoon, and we'll go to the county for that draw. That should be 1.4, 1.5, so you'll have that in paving to do. If we sign this contract with the county and we continue that, we should be bidding that. That transfer pipe was estimated to be a $2 million job. So yeah, it's 12 or 14 million, and that's why Russell and I had to really get a handle, because it's one thing to run a city when you have $5 or $6 million sitting there, but it's another thing when you know you got to spend 12 million in the next 6 months. Where's that? You know, how are we going to get it? And where's it coming in?
How to
And-
cash flow the project and time to draw down.
Yeah, so we got a lot going
It's a
on.
challenge, but and it's a lot of administrative and financial accounting work, but the benefit is that all of those dollars are leveraged,
Right.
right? So you got more money because you leverage local with state with federal. Different federal programs with different state funds, which allows us to be able to fund what we're gonna propose to do.
Yep. But yeah, we got a lot of things. You know, I haven't even discussed, was there a proposal out for a new fire truck of some sort?
Not yet, but it's coming.
So we've talked about a small, not the big ladder truck, but of some sort of an expenditure there. You know, again, and we're seeing, it's my understanding we got half of the stimulus money. We're gonna get another 1.6 next year. I don't know if it'll be this time next year, if it'll be in January. So we're now digging into what we can spend that money on, because there's, you know, it needs to be COVID related. Sewer projects do count. Upgrading public safety does count, but again, Russell will be discussing all that with y'all as to how you want to pursue with that money. I mean, that was, you know, that'll be nice.
How much have we gotten this year so far?
On the stimulus, the last one was 1.6 million. That we were slated originally for 2.7, and this last one, that it bumped to 3.2 something, so I think it was 1,634,000 hit last week. Now, what I'm gonna do with that, because we had, y'all also, whoever signed checks last week would know, but we paid this piping project to get the sewage from here to the town branch. They bought all that pipe. Remember, you had to switch from PVC because it was so expensive, so they bought everything they needed at one time. So I think the
Like
check last week was $818,000 last week at one time. So I'm gonna get that from interim financing. So my point is, we had the 1.6 in there. I didn't have to move any money from anywhere, from any of our other accounts to cover it. But I'm gonna take that 1.6 and move it to one of these accounts that's not one of our operating. We have a reserve account that is unreserved and a capital, and I'm just gonna sit it there until y'all decide what you wanna do with it, you know, but it'll kind of be sitting there. But I'm gonna get it out so we don't spend it on anything that's, you know, that just in happenstance. But, so yeah, it's rocking and rolling. It's fun, but it's stressful, and a lot going on.
Thank you for what you do.
Appreciate y'all.
I mean, these financials are so much easier to understand than in years past, and
Well, I want to
We
give
know
you the detail. I know we're not hiding anything. Everything's there. Every bank account's there for every month. It's all there. But again, if y'all need to, you know, if you have any questions as you look into it or see something, we should be closing out. I think we're done. May have even been done in the audit. Oh, your audit will be presented to you Tuesday night. We asked Rashan to come today just so that she has a feel as Russell talks about projects and things we have going on, so that it doesn't blindside her for next year. But she's going to be here Tuesday night to present the audit, so that's done. But anyway, 11 should be done. We're talking about 16, and then now we've submitted everything for the 2022 splosh to the county. Do we have another meeting on that, Russell, in the next week or so to finalize that?
Mondays.
Yeah, so,
They've presented us with a draft intergovernmental agreement consideration. I have some suggested modifications before we bring it back to council.
so we'll have another splosh coming in. That'll be on the referendum in the fall.
Any more questions?
just appreciate everything you do, and while everybody's here, to all the department heads, I mean, y'all are great. Y'all what makes us look great in the city, like, because it's y'all that are out there every day doing everything, and So we really appreciate everybody.
Just general project updates, and feel free to interject or ask any questions that you want. Some of the projects actually fall within departmental reports, so I may skim over and we'll hit some more details when we get to the departments. But we talked about sewer, contract A, contract B, the work that's going on at Town Branch, the interceptor pipe that feeds Town Branch, and the electrical work out at Bell Creek. Like Lonnie said, they've already bought a lot of the materials. That's well underway. That's a 9-month project. It involves Neil. Got to move some power poles, but it's going to be a big moving project. That is on track. We talked a little bit about T-Splost. Kyle is going to hit more details. He's got some handouts here. When we get to him, we'll let him go into that. But we are going to open bids, I think a month from yesterday is when that's going to happen, so that we can beat cold weather on our paving. Fire station, we've had a few change orders on time, but we still anticipate to move in with substantial completion by November. Lonnie mentioned stimulus funds in the amount of $3.2 million, 1.6 is hit the city's account. I believe we have 4 years. Is that right?
That's right.
4 years to expend the funds. There is a publication from Treasury, I think it's kind of a cheat sheet through the Georgia Municipal Association that I'm going to be emailing out to the city council prior to our next council meeting, so that we can talk about prioritization and potential uses of those funds. It is pretty broad. One of the thoughts was, to forego the projected millage rate increase to offset the bond for the fire station. We're still looking into the legality of that, whether or not that would be an applicable use. We've got some storm projects coming up. We know we have a pile of sewer projects coming up. But my goal is to get you the guidelines so that you can review that from the Treasury, and we can have a conversation at the next council meeting to try to at least articulate a path forward for spending those monies.
So Russell, just again about the stimulus, we got 1.6 so far this year, right? But we expect another 1.6 by end of year or this time next year?
They just said next year, so I don't know if that's what I'm saying. I don't know if that means January or if that means, this time next year. I'm not sure. It took GMA probably, so the county got their money straight from the feds. Ours had to go through the state and then GMA. So by the time they got us the stuff, the mayor was getting a lot of the stuff too. So mayor and I and Russell worked together, 2 months maybe? Month and a half, 2 months probably it took us to get all the portals set up and the documents submitted and everything we had to do. So, hopefully they'll kick it out first of next year, but I don't know yet.
But it's coming. The audit requirement, the documentation requirement that we need to hold for files in case they ever come hunting to make sure we were in compliance with Treasury. That's something internally we got to figure out how we're going to count. Other projects, we did ink the contract with the county on our transfer pipe. Trey's supposed to be here this afternoon to discuss location and route. We're about 70% through with design on that. City attorney's currently drafting the second piece of that agreement, which will be executed between the city, the county, and the IDA prior to commissioning any work on the project. But we anticipate that'll go relatively seamlessly and pretty quick. Avenue L CDBG project, the CDBG sewer portion of that work has been completed. There is a little segment that remains to be paved, and engineers are supposed to be giving me a schedule to wrap that up. But otherwise, that was a $1.2 million sewer project that's been completed. So we have done an awful lot of capital in the past 2 years, a large portion of which has been expended since January. Doug had asked me for a, kind of an update of projects since the beginning of the year. We've done a lot, and we've spent a lot of money. A lot of it's in infrastructure and it's buried. We got a lot more to do. That was all I had, a very high-level overview of current and ongoing projects. Like I said, we'll get into more specifics as we get with some of the departments. But do y'all have questions on any particular projects before we move on? If not, I would like to modify, well, no, he's next on the agenda. Mr. Bobby Cunningham is here from our garbage provider. We've asked him to be here. And Bobby, you know, general consensus is that we just need to have frank and honest conversations about the status of where we are with refuse collection. I've asked Bobby and John to be here from a code compliance standpoint so that we could hopefully figure out a path forward. City clerk gave me a copy of a proposed zone route, and we appreciate that, and I'll let you talk a little bit more about logistics and implementation time. But before we get into that, I have passed out to the city council kind of a photograph log of complaints that we had received that I have asked code enforcement to go out. And I think the main issue that we're having is it's either not getting picked up, or when they do go to pick it up, they're not picking it all up. So I'm gonna defer to the city council. I know their constituents have reached out to them. And then we just want to have a conversation with you as a rep to figure out how we can make this thing work. Council, Mayor?
Anybody like to start?
I appreciate you coming. I know you're kind of facing the firing squad, so to speak, on this, and I appreciate you taking this thing head on.
It's the nature of the beast.
Yes, yeah. And as Russell said, I mean, there are some serious issues, and you know, that if I get complaints about something, it's going to be this, and it's only been increasing probably over the last 90 days. So, you know, the biggest question I get is why, and you know, then more importantly, how are we going to fix it, and what's going to be the plan going forward. Biggest issue again is when they put something out. Let's say it's inert material. You know, and I've witnessed it myself, just kind of riding around and following the truck just to see it with my own eyes. You know, when the guy was working the claw on the truck, picks up the big stuff, you know, everything else is just scattered. Either, you know, while he's from him picking up all that stuff and putting it in the back of the truck. In times past, they would get out, they would rake all that up
They're supposed to.
and dispose of it properly. Well, and then, you know, that is not getting done, and then the wind blows it everywhere, blows it into the sewer, and then it creates localized flooding, and you know, then there's more issues. So it's starting there, and it's turning into other things. And you know, I'll be honest with you, I am not pleased with what we've seen, and you know, I don't know what the issue is, but I guess my question to you is, what's the issue? And you know, what's your plan going forward, and what can the citizens expect?
Well, I've been here, I believe I met with Russell a month and a half, 2 months ago, something like that. So I've only been down here for a couple of months. And I know I've spent a lot of time out driving around the city, looking at the yard waste, looking how the yard waste is laid out, talking to some of the drivers. One of the changes I made, I've actually hired 2 drivers since I got in there. That enabled me I'm actually pulling an experienced clamshell driver off of a route, and I'm putting him on a second clamshell to go through the city every day. So starting Monday, we're going to have 2 full-time trucks doing yard waste. The city truck will remain doing trash as it normally does. I sat down with Dwayne, and we are proposing to reroute the city. I don't know if you guys want to pass these maps around.
You should. They already have copies.
I already have copies, okay. So if you look at the maps, the old map, or the current map, I should say, there's really no compartmentalizing the route. They're kind of jumping, they're driving through Tuesday to get from one Monday to another Monday, and they're crisscrossing over days. If you look at the one that says Route 1041, you can see how the days are kind of all in the same area where they're not crossing paths into other days. And I think that's gonna enable us to do two things. Number one, the way it was set up before, you can pick up one street and go to the street right next to it and you're on the wrong day, and then go to the street right next to it and you're back on the right day. With this being compartmentalized, it's gonna be easier for us to have the two drivers, all right, you pick up this section, you pick up this section. There's no crossing over into Tuesday on Monday or crossing into Wednesday on Tuesday. They know exactly where each day is, and that way they can make sure and go back and double check to make sure that their areas are completely clean on a daily basis. I don't know how long I'm gonna do it for, but I've also got another driver, he's actually a helper, but he's on a box truck, going around picking up the little piles. A lot of people, there's some people that are putting out piles of 12 sticks. Well, it's kind of dumb to use the clamshell truck to go out there and put the legs down and use the clamshell to pick up 12 sticks. So I've got a guy in a box truck going around picking up the little piles of grass clippings and the little piles of sticks and the little stuff like that, so that the clamshell doesn't have to waste time. It takes, 5 minutes to pick up 10 sticks, where this other guy can just come scoop it up with a shovel, go in the box truck and keep moving. So I'm trying to put plenty of trucks out there to maintain, get it under control and to maintain it. About a month ago, just over a month ago, Dwayne actually sent a driver and another truck. So we had 3 trucks running yard waste every day for a week. Part of the issue is in Stockbridge, they've got parameters that people need to follow when they put stuff up. Like I just brought a copy of the basic parameters of Stockbridge, and it basically says all items must be at least 6 feet away from anything that can be damaged or that would prevent the cloth from being able to grab the items. The items must be no more than 10 feet from the edge of the road, cannot be under power lines, and cannot be on angled surfaces like ditches or hills, where the claw will be unable to grab the items. The truck is about 15 feet long, so there must be enough room for the truck to park parallel to the items in order to service them without potentially causing damage to vehicles or other things that may be impeding it. I understand in the city, back alley, stuff like that, it's hard to put it 6 feet from anything, or it's hard to put it, But in talking to drivers and driving around, one of the big concerns I see is the power lines. I've driven that truck 4 times since I've been down here, and there's some piles that I probably shouldn't have touched, but because I can operate the arm, I was very, very slow and careful to try to get that arm down due to Billy and the other feedback that no matter where it is, we got to get it. My conundrum with that is do I tell the driver, go ahead, be easy, whatever, then he clips a power line, and now I'm getting a call from the city saying there's no power on this city block. And that's going to be our fault. So the catch-22 is, do we see if we can do something about them putting it more, because one of the stops I had was directly under power lines, and there's about 15 feet that way and 15 feet that way. And I know the citizens aren't purposely putting it under power lines. But I know until I got into trash, I never looked up when I put something out. Oh, here, just look like a clear path. Here, let's put it right here. They don't look up to see if there's power lines or something blocking it. So I get it. That's a battle that we're facing. Some of the back alleys, they have a lot of overhang. Like some of the brush is starting to overflow over fences and down over the top of the trees. And that truck is about 15 feet long. It's a pretty big truck. So there's a lot of times where they're trying to maneuver into areas that, they're going through the overhang, and obviously they don't want to hit anything that's parked in the alleyway. They don't want to mess anything up. Some of the piles, I don't remember the name of the road, in Magnolia, at the very end of Magnolia, when I was on one truck, there was one pile of tree branches that took me 50 minutes to pick up. And I can tell looking at the pile, me, you, any of you, if you clip part of a tree, clip the brush, clip whatever it is and put it at the curb. And then if you have a company who comes in and cuts down a tree and puts it at the curb, the piles will just look different. So I think unfortunately, and there's no way to, without catching them in the act, and there's no way to prove what I'm saying, but there's some situations where I think some of the companies are coming in and cutting down trees and it's putting stuff at the curb because they know GFL is going to come around and pick up the yard waste. So I don't know if they're charging the customers for the disposal of the chipping, pocketing the money and putting it at the curb. I don't, I can't prove any of that stuff, but that's making it complicated on us as well. Like we talked about in our meeting, where I went out there, there's one stop had a bunch of tree stumps. Very few homeowners cut their own tree stumps. I know I don't. So we're fighting those little bit of battles. And then another thing I noticed when I was running it, I was in Magnolia on a Wednesday, cleaning up Monday. And while I was picking up one pile, I think it was whatever the road is next to Magnolia, 2 houses down, he was clipping his bushes and putting them at the street. So we had just serviced the area on Monday, and now on Tuesday or Wednesday, they're putting the stuff back out there. So optically, it's never gonna look like we're caught up. Because I know a couple of weeks ago on a Monday, I drove up and down 19 North and Waymanville Road all the way up. And Monday night, there was not a single item out. Wednesday morning, I had to go to a meeting, and I went up Waymanville Road, and there was already 7 piles on Waymanville Road on Wednesday. So if you drive down there Wednesday morning, you're like, what do they do? Did they not pick this stuff up on Monday? Because I started to question, I was like, no, I drove through here Monday. I know it was clean. So it's hard to go, okay, we're going to stay ahead of the game when, and I know there's no way to get people, okay, well, if you're service Monday, put it out Sunday. People cut their grass when they cut their grass. They trim the bushes when they trim their bushes. I get that. So that's where the battle is with us, is I don't know how to go about, I guess, optically making it look like everything is on track if they're putting it out a day or two after we picked it up in the first place.
Can you generate an idle time report off your GIS system?
What do you mean an idle time report?
Say Kyle calls and he says, man, I put my trash out, they didn't get it, and we call you and you say they did. Is there a way via GPS that you could run an idle time and query it to an address that says, yes, my truck was there for 7 minutes at 8:30 p.m.?
It won't be that specific on time. What it does is the tracking system on our trucks will show it's got like little arrows where it'll put at 8 a.m. turn left onto Waymanville Road, and then every so often it'll have pings. So at 8:01, 8:02, 8:03, and then if you see 8:03 and then the next one's at 8:07, well, somewhere between 8:03 and 8:07 they stop to do something. And I can plug in an address and get that little window of where they were and at what time they were there. But there's no way to really see, okay, it took 7 minutes to do this or 9 minutes to do that because the pings jump. I can get a ballpark estimate of how long they were
I was
there.
just curious if there was a way to either validate or invalidate complaints. I was just curious how
Yeah.
sophisticated that was.
Because I can track where the trucks go, and I can tell you after tracking the trucks for the last few weeks, they go up and down every street on, well, as best as we can follow on the way it's laid out now. They go down every street, and then some of the streets on a different day.
Well, they pick up garbage at Cook's about 6 or 7 times a day.
Yeah, I know there's several trucks that go there. That driver's also changing. So one of the new hires that I have is actually going to be on that route. So you
I
should,
sit up there in my window and I look out and watch them.
yeah, you should see them at Cook's at most 3 times, because then you take a break in the morning, take lunch, and then one break in the afternoon. That's about all they should be there. They shouldn't be there half a dozen times a day. I know for sure since I've taken over that their time at Cook's has been significantly reduced. Because from what I understand, they've been up there half a dozen times a day for hours on end. So I'm trying to, there's a lot of battles I'm trying to fight all at the same time. But I think definitely rerouting it is going to help not only the yard waste, but it's also going to help with the residential pickup as well.
So what would be, to alleviate some of the calls that we filled here at City Hall, if we have a homeowner who for whatever reason gets missing, what is the most expedient way for them to contact your staff?
Are you talking about trash or?
Yeah, either one, whether it be inert material or garbage.
I don't think there's too many missed stops as far as garbage. I think the city route is pretty good about making sure the garbage is picked up on the appropriate day that it's supposed to be picked up. I think our biggest struggle right now is with yard waste.
It would not be out of the norm for me to get a call, particularly on Peach Belt and in the Fair Oaks. That was the most recent. And I bet you, I took pictures and.
I sent it to him.
Okay.
Yeah, we got that.
And I bet you there were a dozen piles, within that, going up Peach Belt to Fair Oaks. There were some piles out there on the street in front of the subdivision, and inside the subdivision on the cul-de-sac streets that you could tell have been sitting there a long time. So, I don't know, it almost looked like it was avoided altogether. I don't know that to be the case, but
It was missed for a couple of weeks. The issue with Peach Belt and that little neighborhood on Peach Belt is it's city, but it's not in the cluster part of the city. And with the driver that's currently on there, not the guy who's going on there starting Monday, but the guy who's currently driving on there, he's still kind of, okay, the city runs this area, the city runs that area, and at times he doesn't go over there.
yeah.
And I talked to him about that when I called him, when Russell sent me the picture, and I was like, we have to get all the areas.
Yeah.
And the issue is with the one truck, and that's why I'm adding a second truck on there, is there's times where he's a little bit behind. Like this week, he did a couple hours of Thursday morning, which set him a little behind on Thursday, and now he's doing Thursday and Friday on Friday. And so he's trying to pick his battles, but I'm like, you can't pick one area as more important than the other or less important. I've tried to get across to him two things. One, if something does happen to get missed one week on Thursday, then the following Thursday, that needs to be the first area you hit.
Right.
So if it does get missed, it's missed for a week, but they're the first ones picked up the following week, so it's taken care of.
In South Main Street, same. I mean, you can go down all of Main Street for that matter, and you can kind of see it. And again, there may be some things where folks are putting it out there, and it's, like you said, a big pile of refrigerators or whatever the case may be, and you're spending a lot of time. But
Which one is South Main Street?
it's turns into 74.
The one that says Old Crest Road.
Yeah,
That.
Okay.
that one seems. I get a lot of complaints there as well. Just.
But that's one of those areas right now that is a Tuesday pickup, but it's right smack in the middle of Monday's territory. So I don't know why it's not getting, I don't know if they're just not going out that far. I mean, it makes more sense for them to do it Monday, but since it's on Tuesday, I don't know where the cross-up is, and I'm gonna have to get with him on that.
Yeah.
But definitely with the two trucks out there. And another thing I told them was, I understand that as council members, you want citizens to don't just make sure everything is done right. And I think optically, as far as the city goes, I told them to make absolutely certain that if you're gonna be a little behind on one day, make sure Waymanville Road, make sure 19, make sure all the main arteries to the city are clean. And then if you have to go back into a section of a neighborhood or something like that at the beginning of the next day, then go ahead and do that. But don't leave Waymanville or any of the main roads where citizens, even though they have no yard waste, are driving by like, this road looks terrible. What are they doing? As I said, it's a headache for you, and it's also, it looks bad on us, like, people are asking what's going on with the yard waste. So we're trying to make sure that all the main roads are taken care of. We're trying to make sure everything is taken care of, but if anything is gonna be half a day behind or a quarter day behind, I wanna make sure it's not something on the main road that makes the city look bad.
I'm Don Greathouse. I live in District 4, which is the southwest part of the community. I live in the Brookwoods subdivision, and y'all do a great job in our area. Y'all keep things cleaned up. Your workers are kind and courteous and things like that. I did receive a complaint from at the last city council meeting from one of the new residents of the Sawmill Village, which is on Waymanville Road, right at the South City limit.
That's the new one.
That new subdivision that's coming up, and they're building new houses, because contractors are there. And his complaint had been about the trash, people pulling their trash cans to the road and just leaving their trash cans to the road, filling trash up with trash cans on the side of the road, which when you have making weather, when the wind blows, when it rains, it blows trash all over everyone else's yard. Of course, you got contractors also who are there, and it's just as contract debris gets blown off the contract site. What can we do to help these other guys out who try to maintain, a pristine yard and try to maintain a good yard and having these issues with other people who are leaving their trash cans on the side of the road all week long.
Councilman, if I may, you know, one of the things that we discussed in that meeting was the possibility of a city ordinance. And I know in some jurisdictions, there's an ordinance that compels people to return their cart, right? We don't have that. I mean, I could have swore it was in there. I met with Bobby, I met with John, we looked in there, but, you know, an ordinance modification requiring that would then give us enforcement ability. In absence of that, it's mainly a courtesy issue.
If I just wanted to bring that up because we had received that complaint on numerous occasions, not your fault.
Right.
But I just wanted to make you aware of this so you can keep your eye out.
Yeah, because I've got the drivers, both the city and the yard waste, because it's new, and I think we've only got 2 or maybe 3 garbage customers in there. They still run through there and grab the garbage. Yard waste, I stay on them. At Monday, we need to make sure we go into that neighborhood, but I said there's a lot of times where either builders or trucks, at the times they drive by, are blocking the entrance, or they're blocking their ability to get there, so they go dump, and on the way back, and because it's new, I mean, everybody's kind of a creature of habit. Because it's new, they just, out of habit, just drive, okay, now I gotta get to the next stop, and they forget to stop there, or something like that. So I'm trying to stay on them to make sure that especially that new neighborhood, that the yard waste does get picked up on Monday like it should with everything else.
Thank you.
I was gonna ask also, on yard waste, I think it was about a month and a half, 2 months ago, I called Russell and talked to him. I had some constituents complaining about the yard waste not being picked up for about 2 weeks. Of course, I called Russell and talked to Russell about it, and he told me that y'all had some truck that was broken at the time. And, of course, now, you know, the constituents ain't gonna listen to that. When they call you, they gonna want the yard waste picked up. And what can we do in the future about that, you know, as far as getting it picked up within a 2 week time frame?
Well, the goal is for it to get picked up the day it's supposed to be picked up. And that's why I'm putting a second truck out there.
But it
and
went
the
2
box
weeks
truck.
though. But it went 2 weeks, over 2 weeks before it got picked
How
up.
long ago was that?
You remember when I called you, you told me that the truck was broken?
It's been a couple.
Yeah.
So that was before I came down.
I don't think it's that long. This is,
I think it was about 2 months ago.
it may have been.
Yeah, because I don't recall any situation, like the one day where we did have a truck issue, I called Stockbridge and got another truck from them for a day. So one thing that you will get from me is I'm not gonna, if you call me with an issue, I'm not gonna make an excuse why we can't do it. I've never been like that, I'm never gonna be like that. I'm gonna find a way to get it done. Now, is it gonna get done on that day? If I can, yes. If not, I will have it done within a day at the most 2. I'm not a big believer in, now of course, I can't monitor every second of every day of every driver. But if I find out of a problem, you know, like Russell told me about the issue you were having over on Peach Belt, I got the driver out there that next day. So if I know about the problem, I'm gonna get it handled. So I don't believe in leaving stuff out there for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. From my understanding, when I took over a couple of months ago, they were like 6 months behind. So, you know, I was kind of running an uphill battle right from the start.
I had an issue this week where it's normally picked up on Tuesday. And this past Tuesday would have been the 3rd week that it had not been picked up. But it was picked up this Tuesday. But that was 2 weeks that it had been out there. And I just called and talked to Oasis, and I think Oasis must have called, you know, down at your place, and they did get by this past Tuesday and pick it up.
Yeah, as soon as I know about something, I'm gonna get it resolved as soon as I possibly can. It's just geographically, the city is too big for me to drive I mean, as busy as I am, just like you are at your office, I don't have time to drive every street every day to make sure. So by all means, if you've contacted me, you've texted me to call people, check on something, same thing. If I know about it, I'm gonna get it handled. And even when I was in Stockbridge, I tell customers, I can't fix a problem I don't know about. So if I know about it, I'm gonna get it resolved as soon as I possibly can.
Let me ask you, at the bottom of my street, there's a street called Birdsong that goes by the Presbyterian Church. back behind the hospital. And I know some tree limbs and stuff have been there for probably 2+ weeks. But here's the question I wonder, because they've cut some trees, and I just wonder, is it not fitting? You know, I don't know that you're supposed to pick up everything. If somebody saws a tree down and they leave chunks that are that big and that tall, or y'all, or my thought was, because I rode somebody by there the other day, because there'd been a couple, at least 2 years, and I said, I don't think the city's going to pick that up because it's just too big. Whoever was contracted to do that probably should have hauled it off themselves. But there are a lot of limbs that are laying out there that I thought probably would have been picked up, but I wasn't sure if. So I kind of wanted to learn from you, what is the state? Or y'all not picking up any of it because there's some of it that doesn't fit the guidelines, or
I think the general rule used to be 4 feet 6 inches in diameter, but if it's close and the claw can get it, they normally do. But if it's greatly exceeding either in length or in weight, we just need some process by which, if they run up on something like that and it is a pass due to a violation, then we need to be notified of the pass.
And then, so whose duty would it be? Let's say I had a guy that cut a tree down, and he cut it up in all the right things, and y'all picked it up. And your guy who was running the truck in my area, it's Greenwood, he did a really good job. He swept it up and did a good job. Though I see in pictures of others where, gosh, even after they're through, it looks just dirty and doesn't look like it's done. But your guy did a good job at mine. So, but I guess, so let's say they drive by there and say, we're not picking that up. It's just too big or whatever. Do they stop and maybe, whose job is it to notify the customer, your stuff's just too big, or it doesn't fit what
we would notify the customer, but we would need to be notified.
Well, about 3 weeks ago, we got door hangers in.
Okay.
So now the drivers have door hangers, so if there is an issue where it's under power lines, or it's too close to something, or there's a chance of damaging something, or there's whatever reason he wasn't able to pick the pile up, he's supposed to fill out door hanger and put it at the house to let the customer know what the issue is.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and that's the key. If somebody's not,
Communication.
if there's something that they're not doing right, then we need to let them know, and if they needed to put it across the street rather than over on this side. But if you will check that birdsong thing and then let Russell them know, or Oasis know,
And we do have some situations in our mill areas to where if you own a particular house, there's nowhere you can put it and be in compliance with the city ordinance, period. It's just too tight, you're too close to power lines, and those are challenging situations that I think historically practical remedies have been reached that may or may not be in strict compliance with the ordinance, but we've just kind of worked through those.
What can, we've thrown a lot at you. I mean, what, as a city, what can we do to help you do your job better? Is there anything that we can try?
Maybe we have some more education, maybe some inserts in the billing, a town hall meeting where people can come and kind of.
I think one of the things is, like I said earlier, before I got in the trash business, is, I'd put my can in my box. Why not? When people put their yard waste out, or they put their mattress out, or whatever it is that they're wanting picked up, they don't look up, they don't see. And it's not that people are purposely going out to, I'm going to make this difficult on this driver and put my stuff here. Even though some of the drivers interpret it that way and they think, why are they making my life so difficult? They just don't know any better.
Right.
And I think, like you said, if there's some way we can lay it out for them that, I think part of the thing is with a lot of the customers that I experienced in Stockbridge, if we tell them you can't do this, they're going to do it. But I think we have to really get into the why can't they do it, so they understand that, well, if you want this done, you need to do this. If you don't do this, then we can't do our job.
Right.
So it's just figuring out a way, and I'll see if I can maybe lay out some type of thing to in order for us to be able to more effectively do what we need to do, what they
Yeah,
can
you don't have to tell me that, just something to think about and get
Yeah.
back with Russell, because if there is something, it may be a statement stuffer in utility bill, or it may be, something as important as the town hall meeting, and that would be fine, because I think it is an important issue. It seems to be a recurring issue, and if that's gonna help the citizenry know what your pain points are, and like you said, it's a safety issue too. Nobody wants to operate a metal claw around a power pole, a power line, so.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those lines are cable,
Okay.
so,
Well, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't
Yeah.
want to chance it.
no, exactly, there's no way to really tell the difference.
Part of the challenge for identifying the issue for staff has been, in June, I've been here 5 years. I went for 4 years and never had one complaint. Not one.
Mhm.
And then I'm getting 100 a week. Something changed. And we're trying to identify, was it the new company? I mean,
When GFL took over, nothing should have changed.
well, something changed. We're trying to figure out what changed and how do we get back.
Well, I'm hoping over the last month or two that the complaints have gone down some. I mean,
I think they've increased. I mean, you're getting most of the brunt.
Brandy gets complaints, of course, all council from their constituents, I get calls, and then the utility, or finance department, who collects utility payment stuff, they get a lot of calls, and we're probably averaging just between Brandy and I, the city manager's office, 10 a week, maybe more.
And Oasis, isn't it the yard waste, not the trash?
It's mostly the yard waste.
Yeah, because I think the trash is.
Yeah,
is not.
I would echo that. I would think that's the most I'm getting is not the trash pickup. That seems to be pretty stellar. You got great guys doing that. I mean, sometimes I forget to throw mine out and they'll go down there and get it. I know they shouldn't, but it seems like you got good folks doing it. I'm not saying that the guy running the clam truck is a bad guy or a bad girl.
I think the issue with the clam truck is he's overwhelmed right now.
Yeah, and that may
And I
be-
talked to one of our swing drivers, who used to do the yard waste in town, and he said it's completely different now. When he was running yard waste, he would usually dump 3 to 4 times a day. And right now, even though he's not getting everything, he's dumping 7, 8 times a day.
Yeah, I just feel like I see, like I know I've done some that I don't normally do. The guy down the street is doing something that he doesn't hadn't normally done. So, I mean, is it my mind? I'm thinking people are doing more yard work and there is more trash out there. At least I'll say in my street, in my block, I know there is, but I don't know if the rest of the town. But I will compliment your clamshell guy that did my job, because I always worry about him. Sometimes it's put right close to the yard, and I'm worried about him digging a piece of the yard out. But he did a good job, and I don't know if there, obviously there may be others, and there's some that just don't look like they got the big pieces and didn't clean up and tidy up behind them. But the guy that did mine did good, so it's just a matter of trying to focus and concentrate, and let's do every yard.
It sounds like you got, you were way behind self-admittedly, 6 months. That's crazy. I didn't realize it was that much. And to come back from that, it's going to take some time. And I'm glad that it seems like you got a can-do attitude, which I know everybody appreciates. And, I think it's just going to take some time. And it sounds like to me, with some of the extra trucks and extra routes and switching from where we were, methodology to what the zoned or, and kind of going back and checking, and maybe that certainly is going to be a good remedy. Let me ask you this, and I'll shut up. But on the GPS, do they have a route that where your computer system in there calculates? Okay, this is the best, most efficient way to. Okay, I didn't know if that's something that would get out of my lane a little bit. But
when I was in Stockbridge, they threw the idea around, and financially, it didn't make sense to do it at the time. Now, the cost, like everything else, flat screen TV 5 years ago was 7 times what it costs now. So maybe the cost will come down at some point.
I would think it would help with fuel too. It will calculate best route,
well,
most efficient.
Right now, we basically have these maps, and we have a route book,
Yeah.
and it's almost like, okay, run the route, you know, we'll give some guidance on, I would recommend start here, work your way this way, but, you know, when I got here, some of the routes had turn-by-turn directions. Well, some of the drivers get on the route that have been here a little while, they're like, this is an inefficient turn-by-turn, and they have a better way of doing it. So, no, as far as this is turn right, you have a stop here, turn left, you have a stop here. We don't have that system integrated in our system yet. The only thing we have GPS-wise is where we can track the truck,
See what they're
follow
doing,
the truck. But back to the amount, that's why Dwayne approved the second truck, is when we're dumping twice as often per day, it's too much for one truck.
Yeah.
And
If, you know, so what's the ending point? When are we gonna reach plain, right? If we went from 6 months, we're, with the addition of the second driver, when do we reach homeostasis? Where we're
my target, when I took over down, after the first month of being down here, I told Dwayne, my target is by the end of September to have a normal running operation. Where we're not chasing anything, where we're not, if I can do it quicker than that, and, you know, great. But I wanted to keep a realistic goal of, you know, when I started here, we're 6 months behind, and gradually chipping at it, getting it back. I think by September, hopefully we can be on track where we may not need that second truck anymore on yard waste.
How many, I guess some of it is operational logistics, but how many additional yard waste trucks would it take to move that from September to, say, August, or beginning of August, or mid-August?
Well, it may be feasible.
Can you oversaturate the service to bring down that time? Or is it still a logistics issue for the driver that it's going to be this?
It's the availability of trucks and the availability of drivers. Because if he's not going to allow me to hire a driver for 3 months or a month and a half. So to bring a driver in specifically for that, and then to invest in a third truck that in a month and a half, 2 months, we're not going to need anymore, they're probably not going to do that. So just the fact I was able to get enough personnel hired where I could put a second truck full-time out there. And when I say September, we might have it knocked out in 3 weeks, 4 weeks. But I just want to set kind of a realistic goal of September. And having the box truck out there is going to help. One of the things you were talking about education with some of the citizens is one of the things I've noticed in driving around and doing it is you'll see a pile with 5 sticks in a flower pot sitting in front of a house. Put it in your garbage can. You know what I mean? Like little things like that, just put them in the garbage can. That way the city truck, when it comes through to pick up garbage and dumps the garbage, now we're not having a driver in a bulk pickup truck stop and get out to throw a flower pot over the top of the truck and keep moving.
See, that's the kind of simple advice you
Yeah.
wish everybody
But I think
knew.
some people think that
You
you're
can't
not
do it,
supposed
they
to do that.
won't,
You
yeah.
wanted it separate.
Because I went by, one of the days I was on the truck, I went by a house. They had their garbage can out of the driveway, and right smack in the middle of the yard, they had 2 pumpkins and a newspaper. I was like,
That's what I'm thinking, like a fact, top 10 fact sheets or top 10 facts, and put it into of the garbage service and put it into a statement, in the utility statement to help clear up some of
I
these
mean, at
things.
this point, we can't do construction debris, we can't do concrete, we can't do wood, stuff
Yeah.
like that. But outside of that, I mean, if you ask me, if it fits in the can, put it in the can. I think that would alleviate a lot of nonsensical stopping of the yard waste truck for little stuff that you've got to throw over the rails of the truck that could have gone in the garbage can.
So, and if I'm not mistaken, anything that is not a white good or specifically listed is supposed to be in the can anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is a white good, like refrigerator?
Refrigerator, old toilet, a sofa would be in
Toilet, we
there.
won't pick up.
Don't pick up
We
toilets.
can't pick up toilets. It's
Thank-
technically construction debris, but the biggest issue is with the clamshell clam, the toilet breaks and you touch it. So next thing, we got a problem, we got porcelain all over the street. Jeff Elding's come back and clean it up, so we're not gonna scoop up toilets or porcelain sinks or something like that that can snap. We won't do anything with glass on it, so, you got a glass cabinet or something like that, we're not gonna pick that up because it's getting over glass everywhere, but
So how do you handle the overflowing can? The can that's just got mounds and mounds of stuff. I've got some pictures here where people just pile. But is that a hand pickup thing? Or?
well, I actually drove a truck Tuesday. We had a driver have a death in the family and we were down drivers, so I actually got behind the wheel and drove a truck Tuesday. I can just speak for me. To me, it's a game. I'm gonna pick it up with the arm and see if I can get the whole thing in there without dropping a bag. If I get it, drop a bag, I get it and grab it. But I look at it as a game. It's overstacked, overpiled. Okay, I'm gonna get all of this into this truck with this arm. And 9 times out of 10, I get it. And it's aggravated when I miss. But some drivers get frustrated with it.
Proportionally, based on just field observation, how many are overloaded?
In
Is
the
that
last
is that a common thing?
in the last calendar year, basically since the whole COVID thing started, I would probably say over 50%.
So here's a consideration. The ordinance does allow management discretion to add carts to your bill if you are overloading your cart. It's going to make citizens unhappy, but if we get a report where there's habitual violation,
So like,
charge them
like-
another 20
like
bucks
Jeff
and
throws out
make them have another
2
can.
loads every time, you would make him start paying twice.
If he's got 2 loads in 1 can, we're just bringing him another can and I'm putting it on his bill.
What would it cost him?
What is, well, I ain't left. I think it's maybe, $10, $12, something like that. I'm just thinking of a way to try to make things cleaner. But when cars start showing up and bills start going up, you're going to get calls. Just an option.
The overflow, the gator mouth, we call them gator mouth cans that have stuff piled up, aren't as big of an issue as the people that are surrounding their can with trash bags.
Well, that's what I said. If you need 3 or 4, we'll
Mhm.
bring you 3 or 4.
Now, in the city, we tell the city route, if it's there, get it. For that reason alone. If we start taking the cans and leaving the bags, and now we've got a yard waste problem with trash.
Well, the getting is one thing, but there's also an aesthetic aspect of it.
There's an aesthetics and there's also a safety aspect with the helpers on the back of the truck as well. It's easy to drag a can and dump it, put the can back, but when you start lifting bags and start lifting stuff and potentially straining something.
Could you generate me a report of overflow? Is there any way that you could logistically do that?
Not right now. What I would have to do is get either drive to the city and see them and notate them, or have the driver or somebody notate them as he sees them. The issue with trash, and we had a problem in Stockbridge, and there was really no solution to it, is I could go around this week and notate every gator mouth can. And then next week do the same thing, and none of the ones that were gator mouth are gator mouth, but we have another 300 that are. So it's like a revolving door, like as the week happens, and I've got family in this week, so now I got an excessive amount of trash.
Christmas and all that.
Next week I'm back to normal, but his neighbor's got family in town. So there's really no way to track on a weekly basis. We've got 800 in the city, we have between 800 and 1,000 stops a day. So, you've got 5,000 customers, you may have 200 or 300 on Monday, 300 or 400 on Tuesday, 50 on Wednesday, and then the next week it's backwards, 50, 50, and 400.
How many trucks do you have going on any given, say like mine on Thursday? So how many trucks your trucks are on the road in Thomaston on Thursday?
In Thomaston, 1. And that's why we did this restructuring as well. Right now, there's 800 and some odd cans on Monday, 900 and some change on Tuesday. There's almost 1,200 cans on Wednesday. There's 1,100 cans on Thursday and 700 and something cans on Friday. So what we are doing now is we're evening it all out and doing it this way. There's no more than 950 cans on a day, and there's no less than 825 cans on a day.
And then when does the yard waste?
Same day.
Same day.
Yeah.
Same day?
Yeah. But
So that's why we
So there's
struck-
two trucks then, though, a
Well,
yard
yeah,
waste? Yeah,
there's-
right, okay.
Well, there's gonna be 3 now with the
Sure,
truck to the
sure.
2-yard waste, but actual garbage trucks, there's 1.
Yeah, I see.
So
I'm sorry.
we've asked for at least a 30-day notification on rezone for trash service so that we could run public notices. And so August 23rd?
Yeah.
Is that right? So
Yeah.
August 23rd, we'll be getting the new zone out to the general
That
public.
makes sense.
If I didn't listen close, but there's the box truck that's getting the little
Yeah.
stuff. Is that the 3rd truck?
Yeah. Well, no, we're gonna put 2 full-size yard waste trucks and the regular garbage truck.
And the box truck.
Yeah, the box truck, typically, because I've had the box truck out there for a few weeks, typically he can get about a day and a half in a day. So usually I only have him out there 3, at the most 4 days a week, because he can scoop up all the little piles a lot faster than the other truck can. So usually by Friday, he's gone through the whole week.
It seems like that may be a crucial part of the answer,
Yeah.
because like you say, to stop that guy with the clamshell takes some more time.
Set the
And the
truck up.
box truck, just let him pass the small piles,
Yep.
and that box truck can clean up
Mhm.
a lot quicker than that guy.
Yeah, because I know in the bigger truck, from the time you stop the truck at a stop till you get the clam to the pile is about 5 minutes. Because you gotta obviously check for safety, check around, you gotta lower the legs to balance the truck, and you gotta get all the hydraulics going and get the arm out of the truck and get it to the pile. So, yeah, doing that for a thing of 12 sticks and grass clippings was consuming a lot of time for nothing. And the truck is too high to shovel it up, so the clam was the only way to get it into the truck.
So you would say if somebody has mowed their yard and that's all they got, it's a small pile, they do better to bag that up and drop it in
Yes.
the garbage. And then that way it saves you time and they can, see, I always thought, I can't drop stuff like that in the garbage can, that's supposed to be garbage. But you're saying, hey, don't worry about it, it's okay.
At the point where now, and I can get with the drivers of the city truck, we're not supposed to do bags outside the can or stuff like that. Like we had talked about, if they bag grass clippings, leaves, something like that, the city truck, as it comes to pick up garbage, I can tell them, if you see bags of grass clippings or leaves, throw them on the truck. That'll knock out 1/10 of the stops, which doesn't sound like much, but you take 1/10 of the stops off, putting it on a city rear load truck, now we may be back to 1 yard waste truck. But as it is now, when you're trying to pick up piles of leaves and when you talk about stuff blowing and making a mess, when you're using the clam arm to pick up a stack of leaves, and as soon as you dig it in there, it starts getting windy, leaves are taking off down the street and they're all over the place. And I think it's not trying to make excuses for the driver, but you were talking about how it's not cleaned up and, all right, we're 3 weeks behind. Get every pile out there today. Are you gonna spend that 10 extra minutes to sweep it up or rake it up? No, I gotta get to the next pile, I gotta get to the next pile, I gotta get to the next pile. So that was the part of the reason also we're putting that second truck out there, is take the time you need to do it right. And hopefully, but over the next few weeks, we can get all the piles and everything taken care of.
And what, like Jeff was saying, it's, I hear what you're saying, but they're trying to explain that to somebody who's paying their bill on time, they don't wanna hear it.
Right.
And I'm not discounting what you're saying, but it's, it's a little bit of education, to
Right.
help the constituent understand, but he or she, all they know, and rightfully, I can see their side of it too. And, I'm a customer too. When I pay my bill and I set something out there, I want it picked up the day it is. But
I've always been a big believer, the best excuse is to fix it.
yeah, I agree.
So we can tell the citizens, and I can tell you folks all day long.
No, but I
What's
think
what and why it's what, it doesn't change a thing until we fix it.
that's
So,
exactly right.
Got any other questions, Mayor?
I think so. Appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks,
you.
Chuck. Yeah,
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
hopefully that help set a foundation for what we're working on.
Like you said, the proof's in the pudding, so we'll see.
Yeah,
I hope that's
as I
good.
said, the
Yeah.
only way to do it is to fix it, so,
Yeah. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Let's take a 5-minute break, restroom.
I'll use this.
Cup of coffee.
And a cup.
So you just need something.
Got your Halloween shirt on already.
Are you gonna, I don't know.
Hope it ain't over.
What?
Who's that? I hope it's not over. Who's that?
Hey guys, good to meet you.
Dawn, what we can do, I know you gotta get out of here. What we can do is we can add it to the Tuesday agenda.
That's fine.
Okay, okay. I know you gotta.
Like I said, they've got an overview, and then I've got, they have slides on that. What I'm from.
He said they can't
Verbalize it.
on both sides of the night.
We appreciate all your, you're doing a great job, you're able to do it. Like I said, I just got a guy that's been to me sometimes, I don't know how. He's getting all that stuff to try out.
Okay, yeah, we're working on it.
Yes, I will advertise and, I guess.
Good last.
Any letter that you guys suspect that, you know, the 23rd of August.
So we'll put on there on August 23rd, will be pickup days.
Thank you, Chief of Police. Want to dress up? I'm surprised you didn't have
Your day is changing.
And I would also add in there, if they are not meeting the requirements to be with them, they'll get a just so if they're not meeting the requirements to have a representation, they'll get help. We'll start pushing out some ordinances.
Is this part of it? I know I read it pretty quick. I don't know. Yeah, but I know. I think that would be something that could be passed out. And this would be like the
Like,
air.
Councilmember said, you know, the utility bills that go out, stuff like that, do little commercial thing, I
And the
can post
reason
on the
it
website.
doesn't.
Right.
That's
true.
Just like 10 feet.
Right.
I can extend it. If I use them,
Okay.
but if I put 12 feet, then it'll fit 20 feet from the trailer. Alright, I'll get something typed up for you for Blaine this afternoon, and I'll get that to you, at the latest Monday. I'm gonna try to do it tonight.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'll just need it by, the latest Monday so I can
Yeah, you'll have it
get
for
it
sure
out
by Monday.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Bobby, check that, Birds Home Street, and tell me if you think, yeah, we'll get that cleaned up. And, you know, it's one of those things that's gonna be one of those hour jobs, I'm afraid, because there are some stumps, they're this big around, and they're that big, so the clamshell, probably, you can pick up 2 of those.
No, the thing with the stumps is we're not supposed to pick those up at all.
Well, that's the
Yeah,
question. And
so they'll go over there, they'll get the limbs and they'll get
Get that.
branches and stuff like
And
that.
who's gonna notify the customer? Do we notify them? And I think that's what Russ was saying, we would notify them and say, hey,
Right.
I'm sorry, we got 80% of what you had, the other head, part you have is not part of what we picked up. It's whoever cut that down.
Right, and that's what I was saying, but I think some of these companies are charging people for chipping and disposal.
And then it's like,
And they're
you
putting
guys
it at
do
the curb, so they're pocketing the money, they're not doing what they're supposed to do.
Or the guy's just saying, I'm just gonna put it up. I don't do that.
Yeah, why should I hold this off when I can just put it here?
Won't look, I keep on.
Yeah, I'll have someone check it.
You got money. Keep snacking. Thank you so
I
much,
got one more
Bobby.
for you.
Yeah.
Now that you're going through the ringer, the divots, they're picking up. I
That
don't,
they're making on the
Yeah.
clock.
I thought it was going away, but I don't know.
Is it on flat ground or is it on?
These things are holes that have been dug over the years. I'm sure it's taken a while before, but now people get used to just putting stuff in the hole. And it gets deeper and deeper and now.
Yeah, so that's probably
breaking
it.
sidewalks, and so if we go through and fix all of these holes, which we've done a few.
Well, one of the drivers that's starting Monday on it doesn't need to be repainted. I do it now, so it doesn't need to be
Thanks for
repainted.
coming.
No problem, thank you.
Pretty gentle.
All right.
You clean up
If
that
there's a
office.
way to get a truck closing.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yes.
Well, I was, very concerned about the inappropriate material.
That's right.
Fill all the holes.
So, he just wants to
see all that
strike
red
his,
flag.
add it to
Perfect world,
Tuesday.
Yeah. I understand.
We're gonna put them back. You know what I mean? Like, if you've just got a bunch of dirt in a hole,
We'll take his off.
even if you super
And then,
careful, you're still gonna take some of that dirt back out of the
bring it
hole.
up on Tuesday.
You don't have a phone charger, do you?
Not down here, I do upstairs. Should we go get it?
Now, that's what we talked about here. I can have my city truck, just toss it in the back of the barrel of the truck, keep it moving. But when you start putting grass clippings on grass, it's kind of hard to, you know what I mean? Even with leaves, piles of leaves, if the piles of leaves are in the street, you're gonna scratch up the street a little bit, it won't damage anything.
I thought the big deal that they gave for in the street. I'm not sure. I mean, how could they not know who they gave?
Either some malfunction, he just
Make sure that they keep it.
exactly, because you see that.
I mean, you think that, do you think that their cars are alike, or anything like that going on?
Well, it's the side deal, you go tell
Look at
them,
You should feel it if it's going up and down.
I just wonder how bad that truck is.
They have to move the seat.
That's always helpful. Particularly on a Monday morning, it's going crazy, and hey, remember we got a
Right, right. I know you guys are all so busy.
Thank you.
Ain't that no more better than what
I sent over a thing that had the whole map.
I'm sorry, anyways.
You're fine.
You're all right.
No, we don't have to do it. I was just telling. But I was
Thank you.
You need anything from upstairs, Coke or?
Thank you, though.
Subject to change, but it's a
I
drag.
couldn't hear.
Oh, he's asking you want a drink?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Totally done with this, because I didn't want anyone to say, oh, this is small.
Just in case, we need to share any suggestions.
Yes, this would just be a sample of what we would put out.
Got a lot of schoolwork.
No, that's how it's set up. We would set our own. We would build and set.
That's my middle name.
It's.
My first name was almost Irene. My first name was almost Irene.
We could set. We don't have to have them permanent. But now what would?
I have to leave out of here about 11 o'clock.
Okay.
So I just need to back here.
Yes, ma'am.
Do my lunch for my children.
We are doing the summer thing at the park.
But, yeah, we got one more week of it.
But over there, we
You've had a pretty good turnout with that, haven't you?
because I don't have a place where I'm at. I don't even have a place.
Tried the tomato chips.
I have not.
Well, it is a situation.
But this weekend,
Put it in any gym.
this weekend we're supposed to
Or the
put
civic
some
center gym. that we can-
food on the grill.
Ideally, that's what we want to do, is set it up.
Definitely.
That'd be good.
Keith, you like your pigs?
Pigs, I do.
Make side.
I've got a fig tree. When I planted it, it was a stick about this skinny. It was about that tall. Now it's trunk on it, and it's just I've got to trim it back after this next. But I got the deer will eat some of the ones that lower and towards the wood where they can kind of get back real quick. But I'll be pulling off probably later this month.
Okay,
You like them?
I would.
I even give them, take them around, don't even wash them, pop them, just eat them, right? You like figs, Doug?
No, not really.
Yeah, I like them. Well, cut them up, freeze.
Is
But now, it would
Might have
be
to, no,
neat
down here,
if
top.
we had something
Yeah.
where we could be set up.
What are you saying? I got wrapped up on it.
I hate to waste them, throwing off so many of them. Can't eat them all.
Now, is that something you planted or?
I was telling Miss Latifah, Liz's mother had given us, when we moved, a fig tree, a stick, it was about this skinny. And it was about maybe that tall, and I'll take a picture of it. It's unbelievably big, man. It's cool to watch it. produce
What are you growing?
figs.
Are you a farmer now?
No, it was just a I didn't think it was gonna make it. That was just a stick when I planted it.
Farmer, right?
That's right. Hey, you should see it. I've done a good job.
It's not a trick question. Do you own overalls?
Do I own overalls? No.
That sounds tricky.
Yeah, wasn't sure how to answer that. Yeah.
If I got you a pair, would you wear them?
Absolutely. Probably without a shirt.
I tell you.
To a council meeting.
Oh, my goodness.
No, don't do that, Miss Reed.
Please.
Okay. Miss Reed don't want to see that. I used to back when I was smaller.
Oshkosh.
Begosh.
Do you remember when it was popular for the kids to wear them backwards?
Oh yeah.
Crisscross.
Crisscross. Or without one of the straps.
That's right.
Like Marky Mark. Show my age, man.
Jody says the 90s are coming back. She said it's good because I never left.
So you'll be right in style, huh? Yeah, but usually things just got turn around over here.
Yeah, I think you never left because you still got shoes from them.
I'm ready for 80s women's hair to come back.
Well, I thought the 70s was the worst fashion holocaust that we ever had. Don't think that was nobody.
Oh, it's all comes full circle now.
Yeah, but I thought this one is so horrible. They won't.
No way.
But they did.
Do y'all remember glamour shots?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Used to have them at the mall. Remember? You go to the mall.
The mid to late 80s, the mid 80s was the big hair. You had big hair band.
I hope that
All
comes back.
You liked it, right?
I think it's horrible, but I would love for it to come back.
Just so you could make fun of it.
Yeah, I want to relive that.
Just to be amused by it.
All right.
Mayor, the next item we have before the council, I've asked Ms. Sands to be here and be prepared in coordination with several department heads to talk about one, physical agility test, and more specifically, at previous council meetings, we talked about pay grades, ability to recruit specifically within the electric department and for crossing guards. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Sands in partnership with the respective department heads to talk a little bit about that.
Hello, good morning. I'm going to partner with Chief Richardson about the discussion on the physical agility, physical standard that you all requested. So what we decided is basically a year from today, this will give the employees time to, if they are a little off track, to get in track and get comfortable with the routine before we officially enact the program. So as you have in your packets, the memo, this is a sample of the memo that will be sent to the police department employees. That will give them a guide of what's coming soon, what to prepare for, also how it will be tested quarterly. And again, this is just a draft. There will be changes to this as far as the timing and details, but this is a draft of what is required from post. So it's really similar of the program that we plan to enact with the agility test.
And this is already a post-approved protocol that's required for cadets attending the academy.
This PAT test was adopted by Gypstick, the training facility, in January. It was researched, vetted last year, and January 1st of 21, they implemented this test. You have to pass this test to get into the academy. On this document, I did make time changes. The actual time by post standard or by Gypstick standards is 2 minutes and 6 seconds. We were going to adjust that a little bit by different variants, which we haven't, finalized any of that. But the test itself, for as the police department, we feel like this would be a great test. It's already vetted. It's approved by post. Gypstick's doing it, and we feel like it'd be good. It's very relevant to the job. It's just a short obstacle course. They're going over steps, jumping over a fence, going through a window, jumping some hurdles. They do a dummy drag, and then you have so many minutes to do. You have to run a couple laps, kind of simulating if you got a foot chase or, you know, any type of situation like that. So it's really relevant.
So what council had asked for was some sort of physical acuity test for public safety that mimicked real-world job related aspects. And so the post-approved standard was the preferred method of the chief. You know, my only interjection, I haven't talked to Jennifer, but would be for some modification of approval or time dependent upon age, and that's some conversation. I know military standards, I believe they do differ, meaning the older you get in your profession, there's more grace on that. We haven't talked about legal consequences or the implementation of some variance dependent upon age, so we'll review that. But wanted to get this in front of you. I think we had established a June time frame. We're midway through July now, so wanted to run this by council, give you the opportunity to review it, and then hopefully adopt it in the near future. The thought process was to give current staff a time frame to be able to acclimate to the new physical standards, to set up maybe a couple practice protocols and adequate training regimen, so that when it goes into full deployment, we can make sure that everybody was properly notified and given, you know, a due process time, so to speak, for ability to achieve.
You know, what our proposal shows is that we would run it quarterly. Like if you guys implement a date, from that day, the first 3 quarters, we would do multiple testing periods during those first 3 quarters, and it's all trial. You know, them come, run the course, see where they're at. The 4th quarter would be a year from the date that you guys implemented, that's the test date. And you would have X amount of temps and so forth.
And is this testing for those who are on the street?
No, it would be for all certified officers.
For all certified?
All certified officers.
And
that would include myself. I would have to pass this test.
And I guess I think, okay, somebody's gonna say this wasn't fair to me, but you're giving them a year?
Yes, we're giving them a year. They can train. They'll have multiple opportunities to run the course. I have went to the academy this past month when they ran it for the new recruits and observed the whole course, and it's not that challenging. I believe I could go out and meet the recruit time right now and run the course if I had to, without ever running it. So it's not, I mean, it may be challenging for some, but there's little, you know, like a window jump. If you can't physically jump through the window, there's a remedy for that. You have to make 3 attempts and then you're allowed to go around it. So as long as you can do that in the time frame, you're okay. So it's a very realistic, very.
And what were the stats you were telling me for the pass-fail rate at the academy?
So they ran, I don't know the exact number, but they ran close to 50 people through the test when I was there, and they had 7 that didn't make it. And a majority of them were very, like, they just missed it. They just missed it. And most of the time it was the dummy kill or the dummy drag that got them, because you had some officers that physically didn't have the stamina to pull it or this or that, and they weren't prepared for it because they get no training, you know, you got to come and do it. And like our own recruit that we sent, she failed it, and she missed it by like 4 or 5 seconds, and it was the dummy that. So we came home. Renee Harris at the fire department gave us the dummy, and she trained for a week with it. She went back the next week, she killed it, and she did fine. But yes, with the majority of the people that took it, and there was a lot of, I was quite surprised on the age of some of the recruits that they had at the academy that were going through, that passed it, did fine. So
Would some of the city council be required to take this test?
I would highly encourage it.
We're gonna take volunteers. I'm gonna volunteer to go through it myself. So if we would.
Now that is something, it's a mobile course. We could build the obstacles and then store them. And then maybe I would partner with Jeff. We would need a half a court gymnasium. It's set up on a half a court. Like I'm thinking maybe the Civic Center, we set times or something. We can partner anywhere we can get a gymnasium. Okay. Or we can build a permanent course and set it up outside somewhere where, so we have different options. But it should be rather, I mean, there'd be some cost to get the material stuff, but I mean, it's nothing, prohibitive.
I think it's a good idea.
Subsequently, Ms. Sands is working with the fire chief
Yes.
on an alternate physical assessment for fire safety that's more in line with their particular job duties. Is that correct?
Yes, there's a separate agility that will be for fire, that's geared more towards what they do as far as climbing the ladder, things of that nature. But they will receive a similar memo as Mike will with those employees on what to expect.
So when do we want to achieve formal adoption?
I would be in favor of as soon as you guys are willing to do it. I mean, we're gonna do a year no matter what from, whenever you adopt it. So, I mean, you could do it now or you could do it January 1st. Now would be a good time, you're 6 months or, I would prefer
Middle of the year?
either middle of the year or January. That way it's kind of a clean situation instead of we're having a constant staggered. Or if you adopt it now, say just on the onset, it'll be the end of next year when your official testing will give you a year and a half, whatever, however you guys want to do it.
I would think the sooner you can start with that, and you're giving them a year.
But at least as long as they have a year, I don't think there's any objection to it. And we've talked about it a little bit at the PD, and I haven't heard any real kickback from anyone. But it will come. You will have
Because
somebody.
it's a formal assessment that could lead to personnel, parameters within the personnel policy, we will ask council to formally adopt it.
And then a year from before we enact it, we'll have like the official guide of what it will be and then the revisions to the personnel policy based on it.
I would like to put out, go back this week and say, hey, this is a draft, this is what's coming, and the city council will be adopting soon. And once they do, we'll make it official. That would even give them more advance notice. They can start.
Good deal. Pay grades.
Okay. So the next thing for discussion is the crossing guard proposal. Right now, we do have 2 crossing guards. The starting salary right now is $10.40 for the crossing guard. I would say the last 4 months, I have been unable to recruit for a crossing guard solely based on the pay. So with the proposal, it's requesting that we have a stagger of years of service, because we do have 2 great crossing guards, and I want to retain them. And then based on, an increase of their pay, there will be more likely that they will be retained. So I have a proposal here, and also the cost of the adjustment for going up to $12 an hour for the starting of the crossing guard, and that will allow me to attract more candidates and be able to actually fill the crossing guard position to take off the need for the admin staff to continuously fill in for that position.
What did you say is the salary now?
It's $10.40 an hour.
$10.40.
And then they have 2 separate shifts, so they basically have to stop an hour of their day 2 times a day for $10.40 an hour. And it's been difficult to recruit someone to just completely halt their day for an hour for that wage for $10. And then also Mr. Smith, he's been with us a long time. There was a proposal to adjust him for $15 an hour based on the years of service chart. So with the years of service chart, as the crossing guards are here longer, this will give them incentive to stay because they'll know with time they will get an increase in their pay with that. So eventually, after 54 days, then he will go to $18 an hour for the 32 remaining days of the year. That was the proposal for that, for the crossing guard. And then the chief can add to what his comments were, but basically, I have been unable to fill the position, so his admin staff has had to take over the responsibility of the crossing guard, and he can go into detail the day of what that's like for his admin staff too.
So first of all, the admin staff absolutely have, and we've been filling those positions. I have worked crossing positions myself. everyone in the admin staff and support service, which basically is the captain of patrol, support services, and OPS office. We have at one point even had a schedule set up where we rotate those positions out. Just in general, so you do know, we have 3 crossing guard positions that we're trying to hire. We have 2, trying to hire the 3rd. But there is a 4th spot that we do cover on a regular basis with the patrol officer and the animal control officer. So we're technically not even filling all the spots, because we work the 5-way intersection as well every morning, because if we didn't, it's a nightmare down there. So that's a position that we're not looking to fill with a crossing guard, but right now we're tying up 2 personnel, where if we have that 3rd position, we only tie up 1. With the animal control position, they cover that 5-way crossing in the afternoon. In the morning, it's before they come on duty, so the patrol shift for decades has covered the crossing in the morning. And then the admin staff, because of shortages on the shift, we've been coming in early in the morning and working the crossing. Some of you probably come through and seen us out there. I know you come through every once in a while.
They always do this when they see.
Yeah, we make Russell stop. I always try to make Russell stop when I see him come through. But typically the animal control officer's been trained, and she covers it in the afternoon. So outside, once we're fully staffed with crossing guards, the patrol only has to cover the 5-way in the mornings. And then typically we still continue to help them with that if the shifts are short. But utilizing admin staff and just general patrol officers to cover that crossing position on a permanent basis is not a good utilization of our resources. I can tell you the admin staff outside of myself, the OPS support services, they have a vast amount of duties and responsibilities that they're responsible for. If we were to say admin staff was going to permanently cover that position, first of all, I would have to rearrange schedules, because the early crossing is at 7, so you'd have to have someone come in, which means they would be getting off at 3 in the afternoon because they work an 8-hour shift. And then you would have to have a different admin staff cover in the afternoon because it doesn't even start until 3 that afternoon. So we certainly don't mind covering it and filling that gap in. But our admin staff are also, as certified officers, we are backup to the patrol division. And there's not a single week that doesn't go by that admin staff leaves that building and goes out and answers calls with the shifts and responds to a crisis situation or assists them in some manner or shape. Just this past week, we had almost the whole department had a couple of different calls. And even on night shift, when we have a homicide or a major shooting or a major incident, in addition to CID, because there's only 3 detectives right now, admin staff is out there. The last 2 major incidents we've had in the last few months, the entire admin staff, even support services, which is Jeff Little, who does records, has come out on those calls and has been called out and assist with crime scene control or just transporting people or doing whatever. So I don't want anyone to ever think that your admin staff is not filling gaps or doing things outside of their normal. But in general, you know, the OPS office, to give you a rundown so you do understand, they manage the bills and budget. We maintain operating systems, all the computer systems and everything that we run, all the certification management. We manage all the training schedules, the records and all the requirements for post. We put together the training and classes. We do all the hiring, all the background investigations. We manage all the complaints that come in. We do all the IA investigations. We do not require the patrol officers to come in for walk-in reports. We get a half a dozen walk-in reports almost daily that come in. Like, people come to the police department to make a report, and admin staff handles those. The Lieutenant Lawrence in my office takes the majority of those. Captain takes some, and usually Lieutenant Little. And between the 3 of them, they typically handle all of those particular walk-ins. We have public relations stuff that we do with the local community, develop and process policy, review policy, implement thing. We do stats, statistical data, deal with media stuff. Support services, which is Lieutenant Little's office. He manages and handles all the front window and all the stuff that comes through the door. He takes all calls and requests for information. He handles all city court He handles all and oversees all the GCIC reporting that we're required to do. He handles and covers all the NIBRS reporting, which is the stuff to the FBI. And I know Jeff spends a good bit of time doing all that stuff with NIBRS. It's very tedious. He oversees all the report system. He handles and manages all the case reports and case files that go to the courts, and copies and files, and make sure those are where they need to be. He's a liaison to the courts and city court. He also assists, helps run city court. And so as you can see, there's a lot of things that they do. And so doing these crossing positions as a permanent duty for them is not efficient for what we're trying to achieve. We don't mind doing it, and we have been doing it for quite some time. Again, I talked about the backup. Anytime a certified officer's on that school crossing, they're subject to have to leave that crossing. If we have an emergency call or a crisis or a shooting or something that goes on, they would be required to abandon that post and leave and go to that call. And that's whether it's admin or a patrol officer. So anytime at a patrol officer position, the 5-way, if we have to abandon the 5-way, there's still stop signs and it still can work itself. But when you got buses coming out and all that, it's not a good thing to leave those crossings abandoned in the middle of a crossing. I'm not familiar in the last 2 years of any time that we had to abandon an post, but I think I had a report. Where did I do it? I had some statistical data that showed we average in the morning during crossing times 3 calls for service. During that hour, we have 3 calls for service typically is the average. And in the afternoon, I think that number was 4 or 5 calls during that same hour, which they're handled by the patrol guys, but if they were serious calls, you'd be subject. So that's the whole point. We need to, the proposal was to bump that pay to keep, we've got 2 very good crossing guards right now. Mr. Jimmy Caldwell and Pastor Greg Smith do an excellent job. They're very dependable. They're very confident in their jobs in those intersections and do a really good job. I think Mr. Jimmy's only missed maybe 1 day since he's been on duty. And the only time Pastor Greg typically misses if he has something that comes up with his church, and he usually immediately notifies us, and then we'll fill the post, which typically Captain Ledbetter fills that when he calls in. But those are great guys. I do know that one of those crossing guards is he doesn't have to do it. He likes doing it, but at the same time, he's standing in traffic with cars flying by him every day for $10 an hour. So he makes $20 a day and takes up 2 hours of his day, an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon, that he sacrifices for $20 a day. And we could literally double that and pay them $20 an hour, $40 a day, and it would, you know, it's an insignificant amount for what they do in retaining them.
I did the calcs, so just for council's edification. I figured 3 officers, $10.44 an hour times 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, at 36 weeks, which is predicated on 180-day school calendar year. It's right, $11,200 and some change. If they were all at 15, which isn't even the request, that's $16,200. So you're talking about a $5,000 delta to increase it if you went to 15. So 12 is going to be lower than that. I could run them. So I don't think we're talking about a significant amount of money.
Which this was just an initial proposal. I would love to do a 15. I would love to do a starting 15 and a 18 when you've reached 5 years of service and more, you know, so they do have incentive to stay and be with us. But that's, you know, for you guys to decide.
And I would add, not specifically related to crossing guards, but a lot of the training classes that I've been in recently, and even heard a presentation recently from the president of the Georgia Chamber of Commerce, the projected talent gap in the ability to recruit for specific positions is waning, projected over the next couple of years. So I only see the issue intensifying.
And we had 1 applicant.
I was about to ask.
And we actually went through the steps to hire her. And about 2 weeks before she hired, she ended up in the hospital, got 1013, and went to a facility. So she worked out good that it probably wasn't the best.
1013.
Mental evaluation. And so we have not had a single other applicant for the crossing guard position.
We've been advertising.
Yes, sir. It's been on the
Social
Facebook
media,
page.
Facebook, Indeed, government websites. It hasn't been successful.
So you think at $12 an hour, you think that would improve your recruitment?
I think 12 May, and that was just to
Get a start.
throw out because I didn't want to shock everyone, but to be honest, I think 15 or more starting would be fantastic to throw out there for a 2-hour job a day. I mean, at 15 an hour, you're talking $30 a day that we're going to pay you to stand in the middle of the street. And the reality of that job is it's not a terribly difficult job, but if one car comes through that intersection and is looking at their phone and doesn't pay attention and hits them, they'll probably be dead. I mean, that's just the reality of the job. So, I mean, in most part, and that was one of the reasons too that we implemented the red.
You didn't put that in the job ad, did you?
No, but that's,
So you propose 12, but 15 would be better.
yes, ma'am. I would love it if you said 20 an hour, $40 a day.
12 would get some attention
But-
on the ad.
But, yes, but I,
Yes, that's what I'm
15 would be great. And of course, I don't know if we'll get applicants or not, we hope, but unless we try.
What do you do, 4 hours a day, chief?
No, it's only 2 hours a day
hours,
per,
okay.
it's 1 hour in the morning and it's 1 hour in the
Okay,
afternoon.
okay.
Once the
it's six-
once the roundabout gets built, you won't need to do one there.
It's, yes, well, but that's gonna be a
Yeah.
3-year project still. I do have an exact, I can tell you an exact number, because I have the exact school days. At $15 an hour, it would be $12,420, which is a $3,500 difference than the current yearly budget. It's a 138-day school calendar that they're actually out there.
So 12,000 is for the two.
15, that would be all 3 crossing guards
At
at 2 hours a day. Basically, 6 hours a day for 3 crossing guards would be $12,420 at 15 an hour. It would be $14,900 at 18 an hour, and $16,500 roughly at 20 an hour, which is a $3,500 difference, a $6,000 difference, and a $7,600 difference in what we're currently paying.
I must go, but I can't go for $15 if that comes up. See you all later. I have a meeting.
Although I would be asking if it's possible, I guess I don't know if it's possible, if that could be voted on today, because the school starts in 2 weeks, or 3 weeks.
Mayor?
Why we couldn't go today? I mean, this would need a motion,
I'll make a motion for $15 an hour.
Sorry.
a motion and a second, start at 15 an hour.
May I make one other comment? Would the council be opposed to the step increase if you've been here 5 years or longer to 18? Like 15, and when you've been here 5 years, we bump it to 18? That's how we're gonna retain the ones that we have and keep them.
I don't have a problem with
based on the years of service.
We have one that would roll to 5 years, about 50 days into the school year. And then Mr. Jimmy, he's in his 4th year, so next year he would roll, but those are 2 great crossing guards that would help us keep them.
So in other words, 3 years to 5 years, and then move to 18?
Yeah, at year 5, once you start your 5th year as a crossing guard, we would bump you to 18.
And then 6 years through 9 years to 20?
No, I would be fine if we just did 15 and then at 5 bump it to 18 and leave it
Okay.
there.
Okay, so I'll amend the motion to say $15 an hour, but at 5 years, you get a step up to $18 an hour.
it. I'll second that.
Okay, we got that motion amended and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilmember Greathouse.
Aye.
Councilmember Middlebrooks.
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker.
Yes.
Councilmember Head.
Next issue regarding
Thank you.
compensation pertains to electrical employees, as we discussed. I don't know, maybe a couple of months ago, asked Mr. Ivy to be here to talk about employment in his department. And then Jennifer has some proposals that they've worked through Neil for council's consideration.
So Neil's gonna partner with me with the discussion for the electric department. So basically what you see here in the document that you have is a draft of a restructure of the electric department. Because since I have been here in September, I've noticed that as far as the electric department, the talent that we need as far as experience, I just have not been able to recruit them solely based on pay. Because I'm unable to recruit them at what they would deserve as far as their years of experience without messing up any of the salaries that we have with compression. So as you see here, what I started here is beginning to redraft the electric department as far as salaries and then also titles. And as far as the titles, as what you see, whenever we kind of separate the titles or even the grades, it will create a division between an employee that's been here 20 years versus someone new. And that will kind of stop the compression based on years of service. And then also create promotional opportunities so that I'm able to attract candidates and they can kind of see a progression in their career rather than come in, be a journeyman, be a senior line for 20 years and that's the end of their career story. So that you see here, Mr. Ronnie Daniels, I'm thinking he's going to retire very soon. So we will be out of a senior journey line coming soon, I would say by September. He's going to retire, if not by August. He is even headed August 1st to not come back from his surgery. To not come back.
How many are you down now, Neil?
Down, if I lose Rodney, I'll be down two senior linemen. Right now I just have Kenneth, Terry, and Chandler. And that's it.
In a nutshell, we run about a $16.5 million utility. This dependent upon linemen. I'm running out of linemen and we can't recruit new ones.
We've been trying for almost 2 years now. I'm ready to run Chandler on, but he's not really advanced enough to be in the same level as Kenneth Teston for everything. But he's doing an excellent job.
How many open positions do you have now, as we sit here today?
2 lineman jobs and 1 ground technician.
So there's 3 jobs out there to be filled. That's not including Rodney.
Well, that's including Rodney.
Okay. So 3, assuming Rodney retires.
I'm also having trouble trying to recruit groundmen because of that. They had one good prospect and offer them money, but they didn't make it, so it wasn't enough.
What's some of our competitors, how we stack up to say City of Griffin,
But what,
City of
I've been hearing-
Barnesville have its own utility, right?
most linemen from $32 to $34 an hour.
Linemen or grounds?
Grounds around 18. We got one apprentice we brought him in at around 1925. He's supposed to start school up and start school next year. So 3-year course.
And then the City of Griffin also has a line crew supervisor position, which I thought would be great to be competitive as well, to show that there is that next room for growth after you've been a senior lineman, which I propose that Sledge be in that supervisor title, because pretty much he is command when Neil is not present. He takes care of all the things for the most part that Neil does. And also that would give Teston something to look forward to, and then he's a great employee. That will give him room to know that he could be promoted. And, you know, senior German is not only his endpoint with the city.
I see Sledge has got more years than Rodney. Years of service, I mean, is he at risk?
He's 61 years old, so I'm respecting him today.
Yeah.
Sledge or?
Yeah,
Sledge too.
I'm 60, so.
How long do you have?
To go? I'm not going to incriminate myself, so I'm not going to say that right now.
Yes,
41 in?
So,
You got 41 years in?
As long as my health keep me.
Let's not talk about it.
I mean, I'm exploring all the options here. okay?
Well, I'm only bringing it up just to say that we know where we are right now, and then in the next 2 years, we could really be in trouble.
We've got a lot of tenure. We've got a
right.
lot of historical and institutional knowledge within the department. And I don't want to be caught
I
flat-footed
agree.
with a mass exodus without some new blood in that can learn the system.
Not only that, Carolyn is 66, Jenny is 69, so, I mean, you see any day, I just expect any day, but, you know, so far so good.
So every day with the electric department, I have my fingers crossed.
So Sledge and Daniel,
It could be
It could
the
be
both
you.
of them.
Sledge already talked about leaving,
Yeah, across the
I
sport.
think they're pretty much waiting on me.
And I figured the promotion and title change would make him stay just a little bit longer.
Especially Kenny, because Kenny has more knowledge, and I mean, he's come from the contract side, he's real knowledgeable in doing that. We definitely need to make sure we keep him.
So that was mainly the proposal, like you said, the electric department. There are a lot of employees that could retire any day. So the main draft of starting this was to keep the employees happy of what we have, but then create some distinction between new hires and people that are tenured. To know that, you know, there's a difference between title, not just salary, of why my pay is this and why my pay is that. It helps completely with the compression, with the titles across the board.
Ms. Sands has given a great deal of thought, so we want to attain marketability at the same time, be able to retain without the creation of compression. So, you know, with that consideration, staff's recommendation is to approve.
what are the implications, financial implications?
Can you calculate that? Wasn't it like 20-something thousand?
Yeah, I had in here, Daniel's salary, but still I'm not firm yet on if he's retiring or not. So if he does retire in August, then his salary will be completely eliminated from the cost.
I think that would about
Part of the
absorb it, wouldn't
replacement
it?
cost.
I mean, you can replace him, right? But at a lower
Well,
rate.
it will take a while to replace him, so it's,
Market value.
Well, I had a couple of good prospects, once I told them the pay was, they was actually making more. I had a guy from, City of Barracks, that was interested in coming, and he's at $33 an hour, off from 30, so,
Has he announced the retirement, or he just?
he's been talking about it, he really haven't said, well, he's been talking about this, anniversary date, which would be September 11th.
in September. He asked me for August estimates, so that's why I said it's between August and September. But possibly September for sure, because that's when it will work best in his favor.
So what we're trying to do is raise the rate so we can keep him? That's what we're trying to do?
No. What we're trying to do is, he's already thinking of retiring.
Mhm.
So what I'm trying to do is Sledge, he could also be next in line to retire. So what I'm trying to do is add the line crew supervisor and increase Sledge so that he gets the promotion, and then he's more likely to stay a little while
And
for us.
you alleviate compression issues with your entry level. So you've got a highly tenured, or a long tenured employee, to where when you get your entry rate, or your marketable rate for a new lineman, you don't create compression with highly tenured employees. So you want some separation.
compression you're talking about.
You have a real highly, you got somebody who's been here a long time, but to get in a new guy, you gotta get that wage almost up to what you're highly tenured. So you want a little bit of a bridge there so that those salaries don't get compressed based on years of service.
Because the line crew supervisor, if it was added, it would put the tenured into a different grade, which would give more flexibility as far as salary, so that I don't have a senior journey line too close to what someone that's been here 20 years salary is. So really, that's the point in creating a division between that.
You know, council, we talked about revisiting the issue in conjunction with the budget. It being, you know, mid-year budget, you talked about budget amendments. I would anticipate finance to have that So we would roll that in as a budget amendment, and the council will approve it, so we can mark it.
You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to adopt this?
Let me just, I'm sorry, before we do that, tell me again, Ryan asked the question about financial, how much is it in a year?
I have to do the calculation.
It'll be for 6 months for this year, I guess. I don't think they had done the calculation.
Yeah, I'll have to do the calculation.
Can we get a figure before we vote on it?
Yeah.
I would
We'll
think
come
that
back
would
to
be
it, and I'll have
prudent.
your,
I'm gonna
appropriate
calculate it
calculations
right now.
for you together.
If you want to bring it to the meeting, I mean, are we meeting Tuesday?
Yeah, I can do that. I can
That
have
way
you,
you're not-
I can have you a slip.
Yeah, I think something detailed. I mean, Tuesday be, is that, I mean,
No, that works.
yeah, I think, I hate to make it,
Either way.
I mean, I see Mary and what you're talking about, but I'm with Jeff, I want to see the financial implications of
Okay, I'll get the financials for you.
We'll do that. We can.
it. I'd do a couple different scenarios, I guess, you know.
Yes,
I
I
would
can.
assume if Rodney does retire, then, I mean, that spot's gonna have to be filled, but I guess maybe not quite that level. I don't know what your anticipation of that would be. If you had to hire somebody else, would you get somebody, not entry level, I don't know what the right word would be, or are you trying to find somebody with his level of experience?
Somebody with this level of better.
Experience journey line, so it wouldn't be the salary that he's making now, it would just be an experience journey line.
And I'm not, you don't want to get out of my lane here and tell you how you run the department, but I mean, so we don't have this same issue, you know, with the next person that if had to replace Rodney. I mean, should we be building some bench strength to help be, you know, to fill the gaps behind them? I don't know if that exists, if that would work in your model or not. That's why I just asked the question. I don't even mean to try to tell you how to staff your department. I'm just saying I see a lot of tenure here, which is good and bad in the sense that there's nobody on the bench per se to kind of come behind these great folks and you know, take the reins. But again, you got a utility to run, so you need that. It's a double-edged sword, I guess, so to speak.
All right, next item for consideration, discussion, we'll hear from Chief of Police concerning crime suppression unit.
This isn't any kind of formal request. I just kind of wanted to brief you guys on a direction that I would like to head to, and this would be an upcoming next year budget request. The nature of everything that's going on in our nation, and you guys have all seen that crime is on the rise across the country everywhere, and violent crime is on the rise across the country everywhere, and we are certainly subject to that and have seen that here in Thomaston as well. Let me read a little some background and observation I've made in this, or that we've made in this past year. The Thomaston Police Department is committed to making the city of Thomaston a safe and enjoyable place for its citizens to live. Normal call volumes, as well as incidents of crime and violent crime, have increased since the start of the pandemic, causing the TPD Uniform Patrol Division to be stretched thin. This has contributed to a general lawlessness and recklessness in some areas, prompting numerous citizen complaints of loud music, drug activity, fighting, speeding through the neighborhoods, drag racing, and loitering in large crowds. And I've had conversations with some of you on this council about those issues in certain areas that we've had. Despite the UPD's best efforts to monitor problem areas, offenders know that simply they can wait out TPD officers, and as soon as they get a call somewhere else, they can resume their activities. One thing that I would like to do is propose that the Thomaston Police Department implement a crime suppression unit. Griffin and Spalding County have huge gang problems. They have huge gang problems. I was there. I was part of a unit that tracked gang activity there. In 2006, when I was tasked with tracking gang activity, we registered well over 500 gang members just in the city of Griffin alone. I don't know what those numbers are today. We have seen an influx in those activities in the Thomaston area and seen some of those members from the Griffin-Spalding area trying to do recruitment in Thomaston. And as some of you are very aware, some of the cases over the last 2 years that we've worked have had gang-related ties and issues. We do not have any mechanism at the Thomaston Police Department to combat gangs other than our Uniform Patrol Division that is answering all their normal calls for service, doing all their normal activities. I will say that since we're kind of coming out of the pandemic, we have done a really big push with the patrol. We've had a lot of meetings and tried to really up our activity and productivity outside of our normal calls. I'm very pleased to report that I'm very pleased with the numbers that I see from them, and their productivity outside of their calls has drastically improved and went up in the last several months significantly. Matter of fact, we had a meeting with Judge Fowler yesterday to discuss court and how we can do some court operations, because the citations and all those things and the activity that the officers are generating are going back up, and so they're going to have to, it's the problem that we have to deal with in court. A crime suppression unit, what I'm looking and what I would like to do, a lot of agencies who have gang problems and a lot of other things, we certainly have gangs that operate and do things in Thomaston. I would not characterize us as having a gang problem and that we're riddled with gangs and have that situation. I don't want us to become that way, and one way that we can do that is by proactively attacking that situation. Crime suppression unit is how you do that. You have a designated unit that's what they deal with. They deal with street level drugs. They deal with these pop-up situations, and you suppress it and you eliminate it as quick as you can. So I just want to give you a quick rundown of what a crime suppression unit would do, and then I can give you 2 examples of when we've put together a 4-man detail to do similar activities and the results of that. So a crime suppression unit would be a 4-man team. We would designate 4 guys and assign them to that unit. They typically will all work together, or when they're on duty, they'll all be together. They will work in a variety of fashions. They can ride individually in their assigned cars. They may do partners and double ride in a car, depending on the activity and what they're trying to do. But they can be deployed in problem areas. They work on primarily street level drug and gang activity. They can be detailed as needed for specific problems. If you have a rash of entering autos in Silvertown, we could assign the crime suppression unit to Silvertown for 30 days. They can go in there and do surveillance. They can go in there in plain clothes. They can do mass visibility, do a lot of things to combat that and try to find out who's doing that and stop that from happening. They can work special events as needed. They can run and do DUI checkpoints throughout the city on a regular basis. They can do special traffic enforcement in high complaint areas. They would be part of our SWAT operations, and they would be trained to execute high-risk warrants. So when we have situations, if we're notified about a felon or someone from another community, or we have cases here, they can assist CID in executing those warrants and going after people. If they get warrants, they can go try to hunt them and track them down if we have people in the city. They'll add additional manpower to the city, so when they're on duty, if we get backed up with calls, they would be ready and available to respond and assist on calls, especially priority calls, which makes the call volume and handling of calls safer for everyone that's on duty. They would assist the investigation division with special investigations, doing surveillance for them or different things when you have cases come up. It's a great recruitment tool. When officers come, especially certified officers, are looking for departments, they want to know what opportunities and what specialized units you have. I've had several people come into my office and ask about the department, and one of the questions they always ask me is, what specialized units do you have? And we don't have any, other than investigations and patrol. So it's a good recruitment tool. It gives additional opportunities for the officers that you have to do a variety of different things, and it's a motivator. because to be in that unit, you have to be a high-speed officer. You've got to be dedicated, you've got to be dependable, and you got to be productive, or you're not going to get into that unit. So it kind of motivates the ones that want to be part of that to get out there maybe a little more than what they might. So let me just give you 2 examples of some results of that, and that's all basically I wanted to say about it. This is something that I might be putting in for us the upcoming year, so I just kind of wanted to put it out there for you guys to think about. On Memorial Day weekend and 4th of July weekend, both of those weekend events, we deployed a 4-man team that came in and were detailed with basically doing heavy visible traffic enforcement, which is exactly what a crime suppression unit would do, and what we would have our crime suppression unit do during those events. On Memorial Day weekend, they worked on Saturday, and during a 10-hour period with that 4-man unit, they conducted 39 traffic stops, issued 30 citations, and made 6 arrests. And that was just within those 4 officers. On the 4th of July weekend, we had 4 officers. We had 2 officers for 8 hours, and we had 4 officers for 6 hours, and we had 2 for 8 hours. So it was a shorter period on the 4th, but during that period of time, they conducted 25 traffic stops, issued 15 citations, made 2 arrests, and impounded 2 vehicles during all that event. And we also had somewhat of a fight that broke out across the street at Ingalls on the 4th of July, and they were able to quickly squash that and disperse that because that unit was there and they all responded quickly. And that was called in by our city manager. But having that unit ready and available, they were able to respond to that quickly and immediately. Another thing with this unit, you're going to have officers on there that are trained in these type of situations and are very confident in confrontational situations and are less likely they're going to be dealing with more dangerous stuff. And usually that team's going to be made up of officers that are highly trained and know how to deal with those things, so you're less likely to have bad situations happen. So that's all I wanted to just brief you guys on that. That's something that I'm putting together. I'll probably have some details and stuff in the upcoming meeting, especially when we get budget time to talk about it. But I think we're reaching a point that it's a needed situation that would help us stop some of those things. I do know that on the shift level, I think Jeff's seen some of it, we've done some really details and some concentrated patrol in the Daniel Street area where we've had a lot of problems, and to stop some of that, and that activity over there has curbed, and by those presence and those officers being there and making cases. And I've heard, Ms. Reeves told me this morning, she's gotten several compliments about what she's seen over there. We have some people that have complained that don't like us over there, but we expected that. But in general, that presence and being there and doing that has been effective. But in normal patrol operations, I can't sustain that in one area because we've got other areas that we have to deal with. But a crime suppression unit would help with all those things.
So, Chief, if you talk about a 4-man team, are you proposing that at some point in the future we would add 4 people?
No, that's exactly what I'm proposing. That we're adding 4 additional slots to the police department to man a crime suppression. No, I don't have the personnel to put together a team. I'm proposing that we go from 30 to 34.
So we only have 4 on shift to catch calls.
Yes.
Right? So he's talking about a suppression unit that would be assigned special projects, whether they be gang related, whether they be DUI enforcement,
and
traffic enforcement.
And it's a commitment on those officers because their schedule, I mean, they're not going to have a set, they may know 30 days out, but their schedule's based on what happened and what's going on in the city. They know as part of that unit, you may be working 3 weekends in a row, and then you might have 2 off. But then you might be working all nights for 2 weeks, and then you may be on day shift for a week. It's going to bounce depending on the needs, and they just feel where you need.
Yeah, when we get hit with a particular area of high speeding, right, we're limited in what we can deploy. When another councilman calls me about particular, like loud music violations in a particular area, well, it's hard to pull a guy off patrol and send him over there. So it's more of a specialized unit that doesn't have a mantra per se, but you're assigning that task force, so to speak, for a particular issue, and that issue is always changing.
And they'll go knock that issue out and address it. And it's very effective. In all the years I served at Griffin, we always had a tactical unit. They call them different things, attack unit, suppression unit. The current unit they have right now is called a cage unit, and it's gang suppression is what they do. But it's basically the same thing. They're detailed to things, and that's all they do. They're not subject to calls.
Yeah.
You know, they're not being dispatched to calls to keep them tied up. Now, they'll assist when calls and priority calls, but they can go out and proactively target these crime areas and different areas of problems that we have. And it's very effective.
I think it's something we ought to.
And I wanted to show those 2 days to show you that they can be very,
Right.
they can be very effective.
Look forward to seeing you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Next, we've got Kyle McGee, various projects. We're gonna talk a little bit about T-Splosh. And I told Kyle as his tenure increases, we'll bump him up the agenda.
No need, I've enjoyed what I've heard so far. Good morning.
Morning.
Just wanted to bring to you a revised list of the FY21 resurfacing streets that you guys voted on May 18th. I believe we had our initial discussion on May the 4th, and the idea going into this year was to not pave segmented portions of roads, and then 21 to go ahead and finish out roads that have been paved in certain segments. So after reviewing the list and going to each road for 21 with our engineers, I've made a couple recommendations that we revise that list, and I have that list before you right now. The first one is to not pave West Goodrich this year, but to swap out Hannah's Mill Road for West Goodrich. Reason being, the first impression, I rode the road when we were evaluating it, and it looked completely fine to me. I know it has cracking and that sort of thing, but Hannah's Mill actually was paved in 20 and was not finished, so it is a segmented road. And it does have more alligator cracking, and we are gonna be responding to potholes this year if we don't resurface it. And I put in your notes that it's actually a longer stretch of road, but it's gonna require less money because it will just be a simple overlay and some shoulder work, and we won't have to go in and mill. So the 100, we'll get 0.93 miles paved for 149 versus 0.74 for 216.
And I've noticed that's in my district, and I've noticed on West Goodrich, and JD probably can attest to, he lives in that area, but the striping, you don't know where, and I think particularly at night, some of our older citizenry, staying that lane, especially when you kind of make that turn,
Right.
when you come, past the tennis courts, and you're turning. I would love to see some, that may be having to just do it, but then if we ever come back to address West Goodrich, are you throwing that money away with the striping, because you're gonna have to redo it if you ever address West Goodrich? I don't know. That little curve has always been bad right there.
I'll look into that, and I don't think it'd be throwing money away if we do the problem areas.
Yeah.
If we do the curbs.
Yeah.
With the curve. And
You know where I'm talking about, right there in front of us.
Right. So we can look into that and get a price on that and go ahead and do that this year.
Yeah, it's just something to think about.
But as far as doing a mill and resurfacing, that road has got at least another year.
Yeah, I would think so.
The other two are very small portions, 0.06 miles of North Bethel and 0.09 miles of East Thompson. And those are the segments between Barnesville Highway and North Bethel and the very end of North Bethel that will be impacted by the roundabout. I know we don't know exactly when the roundabout will be constructed.
We know it's scheduled for November lead.
It's supposed to be the third quarter, right?
So the thought was not to pave portions of City Street that are going to be impacted when they build the roundabout and undo it.
Well, that one portion of Bethel's going to be torn up, so
Yeah.
anyway, so you wouldn't want to pave it and then,
Right.
that's stuff the state
So
does.
North Bethel's still on the list, East Thompson's still on the list. We're just talking about those small sections out by the five-way stop. if we decide not to do that, because more than likely they will be impacted this year by the roundabout.
The other thing that Kyle and I have discussed is based on revised construction estimates due to, some of the changes, we anticipate that the projects we will put forth in the bid as of today will be way under the amount of T-Splosh monies that we have. So I have asked Kyle to work with Trey and Charlie for next Tuesday to bring back the subsequent roads that we think can fill in the gap. So I think we're gonna add more roads to the paving project. We just may do that by addenda via the bid instead of the bid that we let. That makes sense. So are y'all okay with these modifications, with the understanding that Tuesday we're gonna bring you back? And we should have tighter estimates on what we anticipate to draw down from the county. Lonnie's actually doing a review of the T-Splosh revenues submitted to the county and what our portion is, but I think it's gonna be around 1.4, 1.5. And then based on these numbers, I think you'll probably have $400,000 to $600,000 for additional paving. What other projects we got?
Well, we've completed, ESG's completed our stormwater projects on, let's see, West Walker Street. That one's wrapped up and complete. On Davis Street, that one's complete. And I was going to recommend when we come back, I've got a list of streets that I would like to add to the 21 resurfacing, which is Davis. Since we did all that work in there, it's time for it to be resurfaced, and it was recently removed. Just FYI, we're working on a parking lot at Lake Thomaston. I don't have a grand opening date for that set, but we're thinking no later than October that would be signage up and ready to open to the public. So,
And that would be access off County Road, and we're just talking about some rocks and gravel, so not a whole.
Just 15 car off County Road right at B Street.
And let me ask you, so that people could go in there and walk, or you go let them fish?
No, just be for passive use only, bike and walk.
If you
At
want to
this
let
time.
people fish, we can talk about it. We do get a lot of requests.
Yeah, I have another one too.
All right,
You good
so,
fishing there?
and how long
Supposedly.
would it be open on a day? Would it be open?
I would say probably same park hours as from 7 to 10.
Keep them off the intake. I don't need a bunch of fishing lures and stuff tied up on the intake.
But there is a lot of interest in one day opening up to fishing, and I can try to put together some different scenarios of how we could do that, whether it be a lottery or a permit system or a 1 day a month type.
Yeah, I'd like to see what you come up with on that, if there's interest.
We're thinking
if
about-
you're getting it in your district.
Creating a task force just to verify there are.
Right.
I heard yesterday on the news, do not throw goldfish in the lake.
Don't.
No. They said that they become predator fish, they're not known, and they become huge, about feeding off.
Huh. Didn't know that.
They're taking it.
So I will bring the list back Tuesday.
Or we'll send it out with our packet. We'll send it out with our packet.
Thank you.
Thanks,
All right,
Jim.
thanks, appreciate it.
I know we've kind of covered a lot, but we do have another business item. If there are any particular issues, project updates, council wants, citizen complaints that need addressing, or if there are other matters that council wants to talk about, Mayor, now would be the time.
Anybody got anything that they'd like to add?
Now, one thing in closing, we did have an item on here. Councilman Greathouse has requested that we give some sort of public acknowledgement regarding homelessness, whether it be mental issues, substance abuse, and trying to create some sort of consolidated approach via partnership with public, private, nonprofit, and parochial institutions to at least have resources identified as issues escalate. So be conscientious of that, and if you have anything to weigh in or suggestions, I think we'll be having more conversations over time.
Russell,
Go ahead.
from your, what we heard in the Community Relationship Committee, do you think there's going to be is there going to be a concerted effort and some people identified that can investigate it a little bit? Because there was, some passion about the issue, but very little evidence or ability to get their arms around what actually exists. Even the people that are passionate about it say they're homeless, but no way to identify the scope and the size of the problem.
Well, I think the first step is interaction and assessment, and what qualified resource do we have to make that initial contact, and how does the assessment take place? And I don't think we're prepared or equipped to identify that. And I think that's where part of the conversation and the identification of resources comes into play, that we need more of a collaborative approach.
And so we're 6 months away from winter, and I guess I think people can deal with summer a little better than they can with winter. So it'd be nice if we had some way to, by December, to get your arms around, is it a problem, how big a problem it is, and what resources would we have to help?
I think if you get citizen complaints and you get business complaints, whether it's a perceived or real problem, it at least, requires some research on our part.
Whether it's even just 3 or 4
Yeah.
people or 40, 50 people.
I drove by Trinity Baptist Church yesterday. There was an older man that I'd seen earlier walking along the street that appeared homeless. He was laying down in the parking lot under a tree at the end of the parking lot towards Hill Street.
We've had that happen before. Somebody
Had a
that
water bottle.
came up there and was sleeping. We ran across them.
Yeah, so I don't,
I mean, you're dead.
just. it'll be-
Right.
I mean, should we get, tap McIntosh Trail for some assistance and guidance, or Three Rivers, to help with that concerted effort? And maybe it's a regional thing to, between that commission that may have some, I don't know, resources or experience with this in other areas that may help us figure out at least where to start.
Yeah, we don't have a department that's sophisticated enough to provide the assessment and treatment, right? And the traditional call goes out through emergency services, which
Yeah.
is 911. And police officers, they're not social workers, they're not certified in mental health evaluation, and they're limited in what they can do when they respond. So,
But we've had issues at the bank, and some loitering, and then we called, the non-emergency number, don't know what else to do. They did make contact with customers, panhandling to some degree, and, I witnessed the interaction, but, some police officers were dispatched, and, to their credit, they handled it great. They made contact, had a conversation with him. He wasn't a threat. Just asked him, hey, would you mind please leaving? Yada, yada, yada. But it was a very peaceful interaction, and the gentleman ended up leaving and, going across the street to the depot. But it is an issue, and Doug, I'm sure y'all have had situations too. But he was just laying under the tree. I didn't know, we rolled up first thing in the morning. I didn't know if I was hoping there was no issue, medical issue with him. He wasn't moving, but he was just asleep, thank God. And so it was a very peaceful transition, but I'm sure more times than not that's the case. But like you said, we don't have a unit or the resources to do it. I'm wondering if McIntosh Trail or Three Rivers has can give us some guidance on how to begin that.
The only other issue, Mayor, that I have, it's not really an issue, just general information. I was absent from the most recent Community Relations Committee meeting, but my understanding from watching the meeting and reviewing the video is that council will be receiving some sort of formal recommendation from the committee, I would anticipate in the near future.
Yeah, well, there was a lady that made a recommendation about leaving, voted 3-1 to leave. But really, Greg, you know, the tough thing is we don't have one of the positions filled. So you have an incomplete committee, voted 3-1 to advise leaving, but it's Greg Smith who's been very vocal, and the lady who made the motion, Ms. McCoy. She had a prepared statement and read it, and it looked like Greg really had wanted to give more thought to it and maybe have some additional recommendations or something, so they had put it off to the next meeting in August, middle of August or so. And so I anticipate, you know, I almost would have thought they probably wouldn't have voted on it then and just said put it off, but in fact they did vote on it and said we're gonna maybe add some other things, so that's where it stood.
The only other thing I got is we're constantly having a lot of people call about people's grass not cut. We kind of talked about that, and a lot of it seems to kind of be a landlord issue, and kind of run across Russell that maybe we not maybe get a meeting with some of the larger landlord folks to kind of talk over some code enforcement stuff with them. I think it may be just a good communication thing with them. You know, maybe not the whole council can sit, but maybe some of us can kind of sit there and just reach with them and see, you know, because some of them seem, a couple of them may have more complaints. It's so-and-so's house, you know, and they own this house or something. So I think, you know, that may be a good thing to kind of
Don't
reach out.
police officers supposed to ride in, if they see that, don't they supposed to do citation?
Patrol division will. Bobby, does the notification or if you get in a citation situation, does that go to the tenant or the property owner?
Well, we deal with it both ways. Sometimes with the management companies that we deal with, they sort of oversee the maintenance of the property, so it's just how the property owners got it set up under a management company, which is some of our real estate, or the individual. Like I said, it's different with both ways.
I would say the nuisance is tied to the property, because if we ever get an order, it's going to be filed with the property. I'd cite the property owner.
Yeah, the code reads, person in charge of property is the way it reads.
And then, like I said, with some of the property owners, they're out of town, out of state, so that's why they got them with some of the management companies. So,
I guess the property management company is the representative for the owner in that.
Yeah. And I deal with it, like I said, we give them a call and, you know, they get on it. We have written tickets, we're writing tickets, we give them warnings, I mean, but we're addressing it.
Well, Russell, I think we had a pretty good report from Mr. Cunningham with GFL. Should we sort of, and I know he says September is the date, and whether the solutions he's got, it seems like he's definitely making an effort. The solutions that he's got remain to be seen how adequately they'll take care of the problem long term, and I know there's some questioning. So I just wondered, should we invite him, since it's a real public issue with people, a lot of complaints, should we invite him in maybe another month in the middle of August or latter, you know, second meeting in August, so to come to a city council meeting and give a report of the progress that's being made?
Absolutely.
That way he'll be facing the public.
The question before council is, you know, a matter of willingness to concede and work with the contractor, because contractually there's a 24-hour remedy. I mean, they're asking for couple of months.
So, is there a way to, I forget the term in banking, when you kind of give somebody
It's outside the covenants.
yeah, say,
Not conforming there.
yeah, wonder
Breach.
wonder if we should put them on written notice that they are in violation, and we give them a certain number of days, you know, without giving up any other rights we have under the contract.
Forbearance.
A forbearance, there you go. We're under a forbearance agreement, which would say, not giving up any other rights that we have, we want to call your notice that it's in violation and give you this number of days to adequately come back in.
You know, and typically in that situation, they would come back with a plan of action to get back in compliance, if you will, contractually. I mean, I know he presented a lot of things here, but maybe to have it all documented.
Will do.
So there's some accountability there.
You want to use a September date?
I think we try to push before that. Give him, I mean, you said it's a 24-hour remedy, and I think there were some scenarios where he did remedy it once he knew about it within 24 hours.
What about the second meeting in August? That would be approximately.
That's fine. You know, contract provisions require for adequate staffing and adequate equipping. Like there's some force majeure type of missions where you get into specific, I think epidemics has been the one that's actually in the contract, so I don't know how that would work out. But obviously, you know, some sort of time frame documented in writing is appropriate. We can handle that.
Maybe even talk with the unions and see how we work.
And to Doug's point, it just seems to be an ongoing, widespread issue. And again, I can see it as a person that pays
Well, we
for
had-
trash pickup. They want it.
We had a similar meeting with staff, what, a month ago?
Probably a month and a half.
So this was the step it up meeting.
And he's on the agenda for Tuesday,
Who is?
Bobby, the GFL.
Okay.
Well, we had some citizen sign up for public comment with regard to the issue, and I thought it might be prudent for when the citizens here to address the council to actually have representative from the garbage company, maybe to reiterate some of the conversation. Typically, council doesn't respond to public comment, but if we have representative from the contractor, you know, then we could allow them to present, you know, some of, if not all of what we've heard here today, if you don't find it redundant.
And we just need to continue to hold them accountable, live up to the contractual obligation.
Anybody got anything else? Nothing else, I hear a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second? Second. All right.
Would like it recorded in the minutes and have no shoes.
Oh, boy.
Kill some water bottles.
Y'all got about a case over there? About a trash can?
Those chairs are wearing out.
They are.
Here's the problem, is they're always a little higher than this, and it just